available on the city's website as well as at the back of the room this evening with each agenda. The ultimate goal of the Commission is to work in collaboration with city staff and the entire community to preserve the unique and widely recognized historic nature of Lake Forest. While we constantly strive to move each petition forward as efficiently and expeditiously as possible, that objective will always be balanced against the obligation of each Commission member to honor and uphold the traditions, standards, and guidelines that have guided this community for many decades. So with that, I would ask if there were any comments on the April 27, 2016 minutes.
I have no comments. I've reviewed them and I approve them.
All right. Anyone else? Everything fine? All right. So if there are no changes, then move to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We got it? All right, thank you. All right. So the first petition is continued consideration of a request for a certificate of appropriateness for demolition of the existing residence located at 676 Lake Road and approval of a replacement residence, attached garage, pool shed, and overall site plan and conceptual landscape plan. So you've already approached the microphone. Thank you. Just a reminder, this is being broadcast live, so for those who are out here, it'd be helpful to make sure your mics are on, and that's a reminder for all of us here as well. So with that, welcome, and please go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Bob Crawford, and we're back again for the second time, and I know Wells was here before, and so we're just tickled to be here to be able to respond to some of the suggestions, positive suggestions you great people, gave us the benefit of your wisdom on. And all I can say, our team has been working very hard over the last 4 weeks to incorporate these very good suggestions into, further improvements of our design at 676 Lake Road. We've lived in Lake Forest for nearly 20 years at this great spot, and we didn't really believe we would be here to be talking about a complete demolition and building a new home, except we got into renovations, and all of a sudden we realized that the cost of the renovation was going to approach the new home. So we morphed into this design of this new home, and right out in front of you is a replica of it and where it fits in, on the location of the corner of Spring and Lake. I'm delighted to have a very talented team with me, our project manager, Jill Danley, our architect, Natalie Clemens, our landscape architect, Craig Bergman, and our builder, Sean Freeman from 29 Inc. So, without any further ado, we're just tickled that we had the opportunity, the benefit of your suggestions. We've worked tirelessly over the last four weeks to make these suggestions come through in reality. And with this, I would like to turn it over to Jill Danley, our project manager, who will make a few comments first. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Historic Preservation Committee, for meeting with us this evening. Last month it was raining as well, so I'm assuming it's good luck for us, right, to have that happen again. We have been working really hard. We've worked for about 8 months before coming before you last month, and we've worked really hard as a team for the last 4 weeks to listen to your comments and concerns and make some modifications and look at how we could even have a better home standing before you at 676 Lake. What we really have done is we think about how we view the home, how we view it from the street, and how we're experiencing it inside the home, how we create a shelter over the front door with the elements of being front row and center to the lake has always been a concern. What is the character of the home? The massing of the home to create a first floor lifestyle was a challenge on a long, narrow lot. We think we've excelled in that, and you'll see what we have done. Natalie Clemens, the architect, will explain that. We have such rigor in our proportions and our alignments with all the doors and the windows and our massing, and we're really proud of what we have before you. But without further ado, we want Natalie to explain the design, and then Craig Bergman will follow up with our landscape modifications.
Hi, everyone. Hello again.
Hello?
I was just going to review the items that we had changed before. So as you can see here, we have the two elevations. The top one is the one that we did present on April 27th, and the bottom one is the changes. And I've outlined in red the areas that we changed for today's presentation. And just real quickly again, these are the floor plans. I know you have them in your packets and we submitted them, but I did want to review it for anybody that might not have had a chance to. And the elevations, with the top being line drawings and the bottom being color. So if we focus here in the lower left-hand corner, that is the center area of the house, and that is where we did put most of our work due to the commission's comments last time. We did change the shape of the dormer, and we've shown examples of other dormers that we are mimicking in order to do that, some classical Georgian examples of that. The covered entry is now, it has two uses. One, to shield from the weather, as Jill already said. Two, it softens the entrance to the house, and I guess it's got three uses, because the third is that we've changed it to a balcony as well, so it's functional from top and bottom. We've kept the classical Palladian shape on the top there, and it's a two-story fenestration unit of doors and windows with the balcony coming out from it. The pediment was a huge change as well. We did go ahead and, before it had a cutout, we've made it more classical and squared off the bottom of it. And we did put a more decorative tone-on-tone medallion that is copied out throughout the home in a window pattern. And our other large comment was that we hadn't provided the accessory building, the pool pavilion. And so we did go ahead and design this out 100%. It's based off of a building that was right here in Lake Forest. And it's a square 10 by 10 building that's sided. All the materials and forms or textures have been taken off of the house itself, so it's very consistent with the rest of the site. It does have, it provides shading for equipment shading. That's what the fences that come off the side, the equipment will sit behind it, and that will be shaded. And I'll let Craig go into that more because he is doing some landscape work on it as well. And so, and here's again the whole front elevation with all the landscaping applied. Craig will continue.
Well, good evening, everybody.
evening.
Welcome newcomers, welcome old timers. So it's exciting. It's nice to see new faces at these commissions. You always keep us challenged. So, did all of you have an opportunity to read our narrative that went along with our graphics? For newcomers, I'm sure that was much easier than if you were looking at our first pass of the landscape plan. We didn't have enough time to provide it the first time around. So tonight we have a fully vetted conceptual plan for you, and I'd just like to, with visuals, show you our concerns, or show you how we dealt with your concerns from the last meeting, and we shared some of those concerns ourselves. So it's good that we had the second pass. So as you know, this construction site will be at the corner of Spring and Lake, and this is one of our prime spots. It's the last stop sign before you get to park at the lake, or the last stop sign before you turn and look at the lake. So the beauty of the existing plant material that's here is that it's established. All along Spring, there's quite a bit of nice, established, healthy plant material, including heritage trees as well as understory planting. We thought the best way to do this, to show you just how this view would change with the new construction, would be to peel away the closest lower canopied plants so you could actually see where the house would set on the property. So that's what this image does here. We've actually removed, just visually, a number of plant materials so you could actually see the placement of the structure and its relationship to the street. When you put the plantings back, along with the additional screening that we're suggesting, that is what you would see this month through the end of November. And then we've incorporated evergreen plantings that would be human to 10 to 12 foot height and scale to be more supplemental to the screening of the building in the wintertime, because as you know, the evergreen planting is further west than what you see here. Another concern that the commission had mentioned is that because of the branch off to the service court for the garages, and the fact that 2 of the garages will be facing the east, they asked for us to contemplate a more impactful way of screening the service area. And we would have done this if we had the time before, and this time we had the time to generate the graphic. These would be evergreen yew hedges. They would look very much like a masonry wall. They'd be configured with taller piers on either side of the aperture going back through the hedge. There's an ornamental tree that would be proportionate to the scale of what those existing crab trees are in front of the Crawford's garage right now. And as you can see in the background, through the gap, there's quite a beautiful established grove of redbud trees there that will remain. So even though there's a peek through, it's a peek to something pretty. Along the south Mortar Court drive edge, now the Crawfords have filled in the less vigorous base of this large mature arborvitae hedge with boxwood. With the construction of the new garage heading a little further south, we need to retain the driveway. So what that does is where the turf is right now will be incorporated into the drive surface itself. So by providing a retaining wall to maintain the level and the stability of the driveway at the south edge, we wanted to be able to still provide a good screen for the neighbor to the south. So we've added a lattice fence supported by the wall itself, and the existing arborvitae remains. That's a little detail. Here's the existing site as is, and you can see it's quite private already. And I will show you as we go through quickly, because I know my time's up, just how we're going to improve that. Obviously, the projection of a artfully drawn plan is really hard to see. You luckily have a copy, in your packet. I think one of the major things you will want to notice is that the pool pavilion has been sited in a little different location than it was before. We've added more turf area into the entertainment area of the pool terrace. We've shrunk the parking bay at the south end of the southernmost garage to have less pavement there. And we've reconfigured the front facade of the main block of the house to not have a large continuous stoop across the doors, but actually brought the grade up a little bit in order to have simple steps down, so it was much more softened and less impactful to the kind of the mass of the house. The facade of the north facade of the pool pavilion, we're setting it all up. We're actually growing this espalier tree already to grow around the window, which is a perfect duplication of the windows in the house. And as Jill had mentioned before, those are lattice screens that we would then plant vining plants on. And the foundation wall that you see across the front is in fact not the foundation of that structure, but actually the seat wall that one would see in front of it. So it makes for a very interesting little composition. And the way that the tree would be trained is much like the image on the bottom there. The materials of the pool deck, I'm going to have Mrs. Crawford do a heat on the bottom test at our pool. We have a bluestone coping on our pool. It gets very hot in the summer, but she likes the look of it. So we may do the bluestone with a limestone deck like this, or maybe limestone coping and limestone deck, but something definitely like colored. Whoops. Jill and Natalie have developed these recesses into the masonry to reduce the massing of the structure, and we're planning on putting espaliered fruit trees in those spaces. The native screen that we've been talking about remains. It actually is protected from the construction site, so that will remain exactly as you see it with a few supplementations. And here you can see the driveway detailing in the upper left, thickened bluestone in the same pattern as what it would be on the landing, so one could drive over it with an asphalt insert. Bluestone risers on a couple of turf steps that are opposite the front door, so it helps support that grading change to help integrate the house into the land. And then this is a bluestone landing that we did in a house here in Lake Forest, but you can see the level between the driveway and the front door is just 2 simple steps up. So with that, this is the way the new landscape will look for 676 Lake Road. We're assuming a combination of yews and boxwood across the front, planter boxes in between the multi-mullion French doors, which actually was a change that we didn't mention to the architecturals. And I think it's going to be a really beautiful new home for the Crawfords at 676. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Before I ask for comments from city staff, I just want to confirm that there's no conflict of interest or ex parte. Great, just wanted to confirm that. Great, thank you. So with that,
Thank you. Just to quickly review, this petition was before the commission at the April meeting, at which point the commission did decide to continue the item. Some of the feedback that was provided was regarding just more detailing on the landscape plan, which was provided tonight, as well as details on the proposed pool shed. There were some concerns expressed regarding the proportions of the front elevation, as well as the detailing on the front entry. So all of those items have been addressed tonight. You'll find in the staff report, we had made a recommendation that some refinement or further simplification of the front entry might benefit the design. So we did want to get the commission's input and direction on that element. A couple of other things we pointed out is just there are skylights proposed on the rear elevation. We've added a condition of approval to address that. And we also had called out hardy board siding as proposed for the pool shed. We are recommending that true wood siding be used for that, just because it is in the historic district and the high quality of materials and designs that are being proposed for the home. We felt that wood siding would be more appropriate. And you have received one letter from the Preservation Foundation with some comments and concerns. But we are recommending approval of the petition subject to the conditions in the staff report. Thank you.
great, thank you. All right, at this point, I would invite questions, so let's just focus on any questions. Let's focus on clarification or any things that you want to get more detail on, and then momentarily we'll go into the dialogue about what our general feelings are about this. So, Commissioner Gale, you want to start us off? And any questions? Any
Well,
concerns?
I appreciate the responsiveness to the comments that were made last week, and we certainly made a variety of them. It looks to me as though there has been a reduction in the impermeable, overall impermeable, somewhat.
Yes,
That's the surfaces. And the pool house, it's good to see that developed, and I like the landscaping. I appreciate what you did on the door. I think that that's your matter of choice. I certainly like it better than the other, but that's just
Thank you.
individual taste.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Wu?
Yeah, I think, the detailing here is just astounding. There's a lot of work that's gone into this. On the pool house, you've spec hardy board. Is that, I know that's probably going to last a lot longer with
Yes.
the topiary.
Yes, we did spec it because it is a very easy product to use, and we feel it's high enough grade of siding that it will not lower the quality of the area at all. And it's color body and material, cementitious material, so that it'll never fade, it'll never peel. It comes in a variety of textures that we think are pretty realistic to wood texturing. So, and as Craig mentioned, that it's just going to take the trees much better than any wood siding would.
Yeah, that's kind of what I would think. I had one comment. I should have mentioned this last time. The pitch of the upper hip roof seems to be following a different roof pitch than the gables.
Yeah. Well, then the pediments or the dormers,
Then yeah, on the pediment
or the lower
and the
roof.
lower.
Yes, it does. The upper roof is the main roof, and the lower massing, what we wanted to do there, because all of the bays are different sizes, what we wanted to maintain one solid roof line across, so we have a simple roof line. So that does change the pitch of the roof between those masses.
Yeah, it looks like the pediment was and the lower roofs are like a 6 and 12,
I
and you
believe
had the ends of the main roof look like they're a 12 and 12. So it's
it's depending on which
a diversion from the main
the side
pitch.
is.
So
Yes.
it's just something I wanted to comment on.
Okay.
I know that when you get back a certain distance, maybe it resolves
just
itself.
resolves
with
itself.
the
And I
perspective,
did, we did review the design standards set forth by the Lake Forest, the city of Lake Forest, and it gives recommended roof pitches for pediments and gables, and we did follow those to start with. It's just when we decided we wanted it to be one straight roof line for the first story elements, that's when they kind of wiggled a little bit, but
Okay. Other than that,
Great. Thank you.
I'm fine.
Commissioner Alfie.
Yeah, I like what you've done here. I'm just curious, I noticed you changed the roof on the little front dormers. What was your thinking there? Why did you
we
change that?
felt it was a bit more classical than before we had the arched roofs, and it was kind of in tone. We had the arched roof over the covered entry. We had more circular windows throughout the home, and since we did remove those extra elements, we kind of lost that overall arching theme. So we simplified it down a little more. The windows are half round in the dormers now. We did add that
I see.
as well.
And that, it looks like that pitch is the same as your pediment.
Yes, it is.
Otherwise, I think looks good.
Thank you. Commissioner Sperry.
Well, thank you. It's obvious you've done a great deal of work here. Just a couple questions, as I did not have the benefit of being here for your first meeting. Regarding the blind arches on the rear and the side elevations, I noticed that there is some herringbone pattern. that has
Yes,
been
that
inter-
was a change that, again, I didn't mention it trying to speed through so Craig would have enough time. But that and the mullions in the front were both changes that we added, the mullions in the front door.
Okay, and is this where Mr. Bergman envisions the placement of the fruit trees that he
Yes,
had in some,
yes,
to
and-
soften the
yes.
herringbone? Thank you for clarifying that. And then finally, given that this is in the historic district and we're looking for the high quality of materials, which you've certainly demonstrated here, help me understand the lead-coated aluminum gutters and what was the thought process behind that choice?
The first primary reason is the aesthetics. And that is, we would like them to maintain the off-white color that we are doing all of the crown molding and all the wood trim in on the house. We want it to look, more like an extension of the eave than separate from the eave. Kathy and Kate did mention this to us in our first real meeting with them about the project, and since then we had K-type gutters at the time. We changed them to half round because that's more of a classical shape for gutters, and round downspouts as well. So we are trying to balance somewhere in between that we can do the white gutters and still provide, you know, a bow to the historic area. Yeah, and the client they do not like the color of the copper gutters. They don't want dark gutters at all.
So it was more of an aesthetic.
It was.
As well.
And then we, just to continue to add on to this, we decided to do factory finished so that it is also a maintenance issue. If they're factory finished, they won't have to be painted or cleaned out or anything like that. You know, it'll just be that color forever.
Yeah, I noticed the staff also pointed out that there's a screen porch with a glass roof
Yes.
proposed on the northeast corner of the residence. Has there been any impact on the lighting or how that's going to work in terms of?
For the screen roof. I'm sorry, did you want to say? No, we discussed this at the last meeting,
Okay.
that it was a design attempt to make a classical conservatory look for the Georgians houses had. And I do have the last presentation. If you allow me to pull it up, I can give you a zoom in on.
That's okay, as long as it's been addressed. I did note it,
Yeah.
that it was in the report. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Actually, all these questions clarified things in my mind, so I actually don't have any additional questions. So
Fantastic.
Oh,
at this
wonderful.
point, I'll open it up to the room. Anybody here like to come up and address the commissioners, petitioners? All right. Seeing none, then we will chat among ourselves. Actually, we'll start on your end, if you don't mind. No, just any reactions, any thoughts? Does it seem to be going in a direction and based on the staff recommendations
I
and
think
comments here?
that the Crawfords, along with Mr. Bergman and obviously the architectural team, have put a tremendous amount of thought and effort. Again, I didn't have the benefit of being here the first time, but just based on the before, after, it really looks to be an exceptional design.
Good. And you'd, at least at present, be supportive?
I am supportive.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Up?
Yes, I think they've, successfully addressed what the issues were set up last meeting, so I think I'm ready for approval.
Okay, wonderful. Commissioner Wheeler?
Yeah, I think we've covered all of the bases here. The landscaping is so stunning along Spring Lane there, and you're not going to be doing anything to it, so that's great. And the house seems to fit right in. It has some great views, and we hope to have good views from the park of the house. But no, it looks like a nice solution, so that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Gill?
I think that you certainly made a strong and good faith effort to respond to all our comments. I noticed that the Historic Preservation Commission wants you to reconsider your entryway yet again, but it seems to me that you made an effort. I guess I might call that to your attention.
Yeah, I did get the memo right as I walked in.
Well, and we got it right before the meeting also. And it shows you that that you can't please everybody, I guess. But it might be something to consider. On the other hand, I appreciate all that you did. And having the landscaping plan fully articulated certainly makes a great difference. I guess we're moving toward approval.
You're supportive, okay, great.
So now that we've torn down, let you tear down your house, let you build something.
Thank you. And before I put some of my summary comments, I'm assuming, and we can just do a head nod, that everybody is comfortable with the approval on demolition, because obviously that is critical, and that'll be part of the motion, so great, thank you. I wasn't involved in the last one, so hopefully my comments will be somewhat on track, but I did watch the last presentation, and certainly it's come a long way. I think it's wonderful, and I know it's always frustrating. I've been involved in other commissions like this, and I know it's very frustrating when you're asked to go on a continuance and have to go back and do work, but more times than not, at least in my experience, even on the petitioner's side, they say, now that we put some more thought into it, we actually think we ended up with a better plan. So we appreciate the consideration of the comments that were made. We certainly see that you've internalized those and made some changes. I agree, I think the landscaping looks wonderful. And what I noticed last time is, we never liked, as a group, never liked to think that somehow landscaping is going to be a solution for something that's problematic on a facade or anything else. And we certainly don't see that here. At the same time, because of the prominence of the property and the way it's laid out, landscaping is very critical, so we appreciate the extra work and the detail on that. I think it'll play a very significant role in how this property looks from all sides, so I think that's wonderful. The only point that I would reinforce, and I am certainly in line with what I'm seeing with the comments that the staff has made. We are certainly far enough along in making a refinement to the facade. I certainly don't think it's a problem. We can get down to the nuances of taste and so forth. But I would just reinforce that as you continue to work, assuming that we approve the plan this evening, that at least you are open to comments on that. There may be some softening. It may have to do with coloration, shading. But when you get down to the fine details, think of it almost like a painting. Depending on the color and some other aspects of it, it can be more dominant or it can be subtle. So I would just ask that you be open-minded to that and work through that. But I don't think it's going to be problematic whatsoever. The way it's been done, I think, is great. So with that, it sounds like we're all supportive. And so I'll turn to my colleagues and ask if somebody would like to put forth a motion.
We've lost our experience.
Yes, we did
That's
have
okay.
someone who was a
We'll work
master.
through it.
A
Yep.
master,
But,
master mover.
I'll take a stab at it.
Please, thank you.
I move that we grant a certificate of appropriateness approving the demolition of the existing residence and approving the construction of a new single-family residence with the site plan, preliminary landscape plan for the property located at 676 Lake Road, subject to the conditions enumerated on pages 6 and 7 of the May 25th staff report.
Wonderful. Do I hear a second?
Second?
All right. All approve? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, opposed? Hearing none? All right, approved.
That's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. That's good.
Beautiful.
I noticed it is a little warmer, and I appreciated that.
That's great.
Very nice.
Okay, got it.
Thank you for bringing that in, Craig.
All right, the next petition this evening, continued consideration of a request for a certificate of appropriateness for alterations and additions to the side and rear of the existing residence located at 1290 North Sheridan Road. So I would ask petitioners to come forth. Please introduce yourselves, and we'll go from there. Beforehand, let me ask again whether or not there are any conflicts or ex parte communication with anyone?
I did receive a phone call from a neighbor, but I directed the neighbor to the building department.
Okay,
To Kathy.
I
and,
appreciate you bringing that up,
staff.
but doesn't sound like a conflict.
We
so thank
didn't
you.
really discuss. I suggested that I couldn't discuss anything.
Perfect, I appreciate it. All right, with that.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman,
evening.
members of the board. It's an honor to be here presenting tonight. It's an addition and some alterations to the existing home at 1290 Sheridan Road, which is a private drive. The survey you see up here suggests that there's two lots. It was combined years ago and oops, what did I do, Kate? Let me just familiarize myself here with what I have. Okay. So what you have here is the existing footprint, the drive, and the plat of survey. These photos show the drive coming in from Sheridan Road, and those toward the bottom are looking in from Sheridan Road. The existing house is a French eclectic style, built approximately 1925-ish. Don, correct me if I'm wrong. We believe Granger is the architect. And it's primarily brick. It's a Chicago common brick that has a limestone-based whitewash paint to it. And that's the direction we're staying with. These slides are the rear elevation. You can see on the bottom right-hand corner, there's a family room currently that was added, we believe, in the 70s. And we're going to propose taking that down and replacing it with the family room addition that you'll see in our proposed design. Front door, but off to the side of that is the west side elevation and the east side elevation. We're currently not making any changes to the west side elevation, but are proposing continuing that same elevation to the north on the east elevation side and providing a garage addition to that. These are, unfortunately, the lighting's not good, but some of the neighboring houses. You probably can see them better on your package. And some floor plan, existing floor plan. But the elevation, the existing elevation shows a pattern of dormers, a balance of arched room off to the left-hand side, and open arch off to the right-hand side by a single-car garage that has this two-story bedroom above. But that single-car garage is really small, and at some point there was a shed added to that, which you see off to the left-hand side, to extend it out for cars larger than what it was originally designed for. So again, the existing elevation showing the family room and that we're going to propose to take down. Side elevations existing. That was some demolition. The landscape design, we've got Rob from Mariani to present that, so I won't talk too much about that. But you can see the darker pochade areas are where the additions are going to be intended for this project. Neighborhood plan shows the house in context to those that surround it. It's a three-dimensional elevation showing the garage addition to the east and the family room addition in the center, which has a bedroom above and a fireplace, becoming more of a center point to the relationships, the massing, and the hierarchy in this house. I believe it also helps divide the house into more of a human scale, as was the intent with the garage, the one-story addition, and off to the west, a one-story breakfast room element. Basement, there's the plan which you might have in your package. You can see a little closer, just shows that a portion of the garage, which is about an 8 or 9 foot extension off to the east, allows us to provide a 3-car side load garage. And then the additions off the back, breakfast room, family room, mud room, and those functions that a family, actually they have a family of 8, there's 6 kids, and they're very active in the community. So the mudroom is an important element, as well as the kitchen, family room, the breakfast room, the informal spaces, and the additional use of garage. They have several drivers in the house now. Upstairs bedrooms, we've added one above the family room, and then one above the stretch of addition that's occurring off to the east. Those addition areas are going to receive a raised seam copper roof. There's a low pitch to those. I'll show you in the model. I'll pass that around. But the raised seam copper is appropriate for use there. Otherwise, it's going to be cedar shingles, machine-cut cedar shingles to match the existing home. So here you see the proposed elevation. What's different here is that we're proposing that, from our last presentation, that the addition of those windows that you see in the arched opening are something that we misinterpreted before when hopefully you understand we're going to be filling the infill with sliding, or not sliding, French doors and side lights to match the shape of those on the smaller arches that are existing. It's been discussed with staff that they have some thoughts of recessing that and trying to maintain the existing arch that's there, and we have no issues with that. From what was different before, that when we presented, we had some, originally wanted to keep the houses as intact as we could for the existing, which meant that one-car garage door was something we were going to hold to. But board members and even the client and I both felt that adding a window in that space and providing a brick, maintaining the arch and the door was more appropriate. So we agreed with that comment from the board last week. Rear elevation. Again, what we've done is extrude the same element that's existing on the front with the garage and the space above, which has a hip roof. We've just continued that same element out, so in pure elevation, you wouldn't see any difference in how those were, and we're going to reuse the existing windows. Similarly, the arch and that arched window is a current element in the house that we're going to, again, extrude out, fill it in with the windows that you see here on the elevation, and in essence then maintaining that same elevation. The family room that's existing is in the same location as the family room proposed, although we are adding a bedroom above and creating a center point to the massing of the building in general. And then the breakfast room feeding off of the bay window in the living room that's currently proposed is off to the left-hand side as well. So here you see the west elevation. The gable portion virtually unchanged, or is unchanged from the existing, but further set back, you'll see off to the left where the projected family room and the breakfast room occur. And then the garage elevation, you can see that we've maintained the same brick and the two-story hip roof, extruded that along to the north side, and provided a shallow pitch so that we were able to maintain the existing window that's in the room. So a three-car, individual car garage, raised seam copper roof, sections, and a model that I'll pass around. And I think I'll take that moment to turn it over to our landscape architect from Mariana's office.
Great, thank you.
Hi, I'm Rob Schwarz with Mariani.
Perfect, thank you.
Get this set up. I wanted to start, I'm okay, thank you. I wanted to start with this and also kind of recap from where we left off at the last presentation. There were five things. Jonathan covered one of them, and that was dealing with the changing of the garage door to a window or an espalier. So that was addressed just prior. The other four items that were to be addressed on our plan was to show the trees. This particular addition, it does require removal of trees, and on this plan, this is in your packet as well. But you can see the trees with the X's, and it'll be more clear as we go through this presentation. But there's a collective number, and the inventory is up here. We have 128 inches of existing trees that would need to come out. The proposed plan prior did not account for all of the replacements. We've been requested to replace the maximum that the city requires, and that's at double the replacement value. Instead of 1-to-1 or 1-to-1.5, it's actually double. So we actually have on our proposed plan that you'll see 256 inches of new trees, which do a very effective job of screening and restoring and then even improving upon the natural quality of the existing native plants that are there. I'm going to switch to the next page. Another item that was requested of us is to have an updated site plan. This particular one shows the relationship of the existing patio with a new proposed patio that's slightly larger, and that's in this upper right corner. The dashed line represents the area to be removed. That's also a good lead into the impervious surface. That was an element that was not included in the prior presentation. We ran the impervious surface calculations, and the overall lot is 48,471 square feet. There's an existing impervious of 9,288, which represents 19.16% of the lot is currently impervious. The proposed improvements, after significant amount of reductions, which include there's a basketball court here, there's a section of driveway that we're removing. The improvements themselves only add up to an additional 1,062 square feet. So it makes the total 10,350 square feet, or 21.35% of the lot is impervious. You can see here the additions, which are hatched, and this is the driveway. We've had several meetings, actually 3, with the city forester Mike Lomsky, as well as met with arborists with Nels Johnson to talk about the preservation of the existing trees with the new driveway. I'll show the plan next. This is the, oops, sorry, this is the proposed plan, and what it shows, I just want to kind of put it up there real quick, and then I'm going to show some photos. But the area where the trees are proposed to be removed, there's one for the addition right there, and then there's 3, 4, 5, a total of 6 trees for that 128 inches. And what's important is we're trying to be as respectful to the neighbors, and this neighbor here, who I believe is present tonight, we're trying to provide a maximum amount of screening so that there's very little impact on the visual quality. So I have some pictures that I'll show of the existing conditions. So this is on the current driveway approaching from the east, and there's a painted line right through here that represents the new driveway. This tree right here is part of a grove of trees that we really want to do everything we can to protect. And so the driveway, I have dimensions from there on the site plan, and so the effort is to really do everything we can to be as far away from that as possible. The tree right here would come out. That one would as well, and then those trees back there. As we right through there, that tree would be one of the ones that is preserved. And then, sorry about this gets a little bit closer. This tree right here is, I'll try to wrap up quickly. This tree is leaning toward the neighbor to the east fence, and it's actually a bit of a hazard. Not sure if it'll be something that would come down at any moment, but over the course of a windstorm, it is clearly kind of weakened just by the natural gravity leaning in that direction, and it is fused with this tree. So that cluster would be part of the group that would come out for the new driveway. Then this is important to see. Now I'm in the backyard looking. This is the northeast corner of the existing portion of the house. And we're starting to see the tree that I just pointed out with the bend in it leaning toward the east is right there. And this right here is the neighbor's home to the east. And what we're proposing on our plan is to have 12-foot spruce trees there, 10-foot arborvitaes there. And I think a really important visual on this is just with these trees being the ones that are the most, I guess, in proximity to between the two homes, there's no privacy up and down this tree. The branching starts 30 feet up in the air. So you can see the house right there. We're going to be, that fence is 6 foot high. We're going to be 12 foot high with our spruce trees. So we're actually improving the quality of the visuals on that. And so I'm going to go back to the planting plan. Am I okay to keep going a couple more minutes? Okay, thank you.
That's a yes. Yeah, just moving along, though. Thank you.
So, what I wanted to emphasize here is in order to make up 256 inches is a tremendous amount of trees. And we're proposing oak trees, bald cypress in the wet areas. There's a wet area in the northeast corner and then at the southwest corner as well. We're suggesting amelanchers for character and coloration and multi-seasonal interest. There's a magnolia, there's crab apples, but the main replacement trees are made up with the oak trees, and they're big. We're proposing 5 and 6 inch trees, and so these are 6 inches here, that's 6 inches, that's 6 inches, that's 6 inches, that's 6 inches, pretty substantial. And then all of these arborvitaes here are 10 foot, and these are the spruce that are 12 foot. And then back in here to provide privacy between the school, which is right here, those trees, they would probably be in the 14-foot range. So we've really made a great effort to replicate, we're double the replication quantity and do it in a way that's in keeping in character with the neighborhood and the existing conditions that are currently there while providing more privacy than currently exists. So, and I think that wraps up all the components that I had wanted to share with you.
Right, appreciate it, thank you. All right, Kate.
Thank you. This petition was also continued from the April meeting. A couple comments and concerns were regarding the front elevation and the treatment of the existing garage door. The petitioner has responded to that as the commission requested and infilled that area. The other comments and concerns were regarding the landscaping and the significant tree removal on the site, as well as potential impacts to neighbors. I did want to point out that there is another component of the petition that we did not make clear and were unaware of at the last meeting, and that is that the existing open archway will be infilled and French doors will be proposed on both the front facade and the rear. And it is a defining element of the home, so that is something we wanted to call out and make sure that everybody was clear on. We have made a recommendation that door be recessed to retain some sense of void. It is a compromise because obviously it will be infilled, but we thought setting it back a bit would still give a sense of having it be a void. But there are significant trees being removed on the site. Staff acknowledges that this is a major concern, a major issue. The driveway has been modified slightly from the previous petition. We still have concerns that all 6 of those trees will need to be taken down. So we're not absolutely positive that that additional tree will survive with the driveway configuration. But we have requested a double inch for inch replacement on the site. It will be important that those replacement inches are significant trees that over time will hopefully rebuild the existing canopy that the trees provide. So we did want to acknowledge that that is probably the biggest issue with this petition. We did receive a number of letters from neighbors as well as from the Preservation Foundation. And I did quickly want to just clarify too that there, in a couple of the letters, there were concerns about a proposed basketball court. There is no, as far as staff knows, there is no basketball court being proposed as part of this.
Right, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Right, appreciate it. All right, So, time for questions. So, start with you, Commissioner Sperry. Again, just questions, clarifications at this point.
Thank you for your time and preparation. I know this is your second time back, and I did not have the benefit of being here the first time, so please excuse if I ask any redundancies. Are you amenable to the recessing slightly of the infill, the existing?
We like the idea, yeah.
Okay, fantastic, because it does seem that would soften it a bit.
Yeah, we agree, and it's a nice place to put packages if they get delivered and everything else, so we're all over it, thanks.
Terrific. I also saw there was a note from the Lake Forest Preservation Foundation whereby the property to the east had a screening foliage to 15 feet initially, and there was some concern as to whether that would be addressed. Can you comment to that a little bit?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question.
So in reading the remarks from the Lake Forest Preservation, which were dated today, and I'm sorry, I don't know if you saw a copy of these or not, but
not.
it does look like to the neighbors to the east, there was some concern, and it was proposed that perhaps the replacing of the screening foliage to 15 or more feet in height, which was removed before the site was visited by the city, be addressed. I know that in the comments you were mentioning some of the plantings were anywhere between 10 and 12 feet in height.
Yes, I think that may be referring to the buckthorn that was here originally, and if I'm understanding it correctly. And so that was, the property was cleared selectively to open up views of the architecture and provide some enhancements. So the 15-foot, I've not seen. Can you comment to that, Don? Was there something of that height before? Typically, buckthorn would be, more in the 8 to 10-foot range of that age. So, to provide something that was deciduous is not as effective as something that would be evergreen, which we're proposing. And we're, in the critical part where the home is here and the view of the addition is there, this is the part where double the fence height. So, and currently there's nothing there. I hope that answers the question.
So am I to understand then that what was previously there was a noxious buckthorn
Correct.
overgrowth? Okay, thank you for addressing that. No further questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Abbey.
Yeah, I just want a little more clarification on that recessing. How far are you planning on setting it back? I know it's going to make an impact on your plan there, it looks like.
Yeah, there's, we'd go back as far as there's an existing window that we want to maintain in that archway, but at least 2 feet. 3 would start to encroach onto a powder room that we have proposed for that. So if we could leave, a couple, 3 feet of some cabinetry when you come in from that mudroom area, but 2 feet plus or minus without having specific construction documents to address it more accurately than that.
I don't have any other questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Wheeler.
Yeah. Let's see. Am I to understand that we completely missed the infill of the arch last month? It was shown on the plan, so.
Kathy, you want to speak to that?
Yes, the plans we received last month showed, the existing plans showed that arch already infilled. So yes, until we spent some time with it, the materials we received last month did not accurately reflect the existing condition of the house.
Okay. I was looking at the, the proposed floor plan, and, it was built out. So, at least that was my impression. And the recommendation was to continue to define the old garage door entrance by recessing the infill brick.
The proposal before was to maintain the existing garage door to
Door.
give it as little impact as possible, but the recommendation from the board was to infill it. And we had tossed out the idea of putting up a espalier shrub against the wall, but I think we all came to an agreement that a window with a little planter box was more appropriate there.
Mm-hmm. And, no, I don't really have any other questions or anything that needs any clarification.
Thank you. Commissioner Gale?
This certainly is a contentious project.
Yes.
It's striking how many objections there are on the part of neighbors. And I think that that's a real dilemma. I don't know how we try to balance the rights of the property owner and the rights of the neighborhood, but they're certainly very strongly voiced objections. I confess that I feel very sad about the loss of the trees and think that, wonder, we said this to you last time and you've come back with the same proposal. Is there no other way than taking down the 6 trees to find a garage space? Certainly, despite what one of the complaints say, there have been cars for the last 90 years. Did you consider other locations? Is it the connection with the house that is the driving factor here?
Well, currently the house, and I'll use his landscape plan to kind of lay it out, a center hall living dining with a sunroom off to the side. Back then, the living rooms were exceptionally large. There's a library actually up in the front. The current kitchen is in the existing location that we're proposing it stay, and the current garage is in the location that is also as we're proposing. There was the idea of bringing in the driveway all the way through and putting in a rear garage, a detached garage per se, but we looked into that and found that it actually takes out more trees. And then didn't have the family's needs in mind at all for something like that. So, I mean, as far as an alternate location to the east side, the west side it simply did not play out at all in how it might devastate the home in general. So we think we've played off the, well, I always say ask the house what it wants to be, and that's kind of what you'll hear it say. So we did. We looked at it, and it seemed as little impact to the house as it did less impact to the trees in the site as well. And to your issue about complaining neighbors, I think tonight you'll find we have some neighbors in support of this that live contiguous and into the private drive as well. So I'd ask you to hold your judgment at least on that until you've heard from everybody.
Right.
But we did entertain lots of ideas with this house.
You had, and part of what you're saying is that an attached garage is important to meeting the needs of the family rather than a detached.
Yeah, it meant more driveway, more impervious surface, and more impact to the trees to detach it and bring it off to the rear of the house as it was asked in the last meeting.
Any other questions?
Well, I look forward to hearing the other comments.
Yeah, no, we'll have comments in a second. All right, great, thank you. I just had 2 questions. One I'll actually direct to staff. You're clearly amenable to the comment about recessing that space. The distances you're talking about, does that seem to be in line with what you believe is acceptable from the way you were viewing it?
What I heard was 2 feet plus or minus. That archway seems very significant.
Mm-hmm.
So I think initial reaction is that you probably need more of a recess to really preserve that void, that sense of void on the front elevation.
Okay.
I think we'd need to see plans, but my sense is 2 feet is probably doesn't fully address that concern.
Okay. And the thought there is only to recess the front, obviously, not the rear.
Correct, and obviously it is a compromise, that archway and the ability to
Right.
to see through and catch the glimpse of green is very striking on that front facade. So it was a compromise with the staff recommendation to allow the infill, but just step it back.
Okay, great, thank you.
And we'll move it in as far as staff recommends us to.
And the other question I had is I believe it's your newly designed porch, and it has, I believe you're saying the roof design is octagonal, am I correct on that?
Yeah, it's a breakfast room,
Right,
and
and the roof
it's
on that
almost
actually
a
is-
standalone element to the rear elevation.
Yep.
It becomes that sort of tucked in between the projecting room and the existing house into that crotch of the
And my
the
question was
connection
whether or not you had considered any other roof styles for that other than,
Well,
it's
we
just
didn't,
in
and
terms
if-
of a design line, not suggesting that it aesthetically doesn't work, but it's not complementary to any other lines in the home.
If you look at the model, you'll understand the reason why we did this standalone element, and that's to preserve the windows that
Right.
are in the existing house behind it and get a saddle flashing and a cricket flash that kind of brings the water out from that space.
Okay.
So that element and just, I mean, the aspect of building something hyperbolic in there wasn't
Yeah, no, I
something I would jump all over. And I do have other presentation if you want to see some pictures I've taken from the neighborhood of octagonal spaces in the, I'm happy to present
Oh,
those
that's
as
okay.
well. You might
And
have
again,
them
it was
in
a
your-
question, sometimes they can be sloped, they can be more rounded and still be octagonal, so that's what I was asking.
We
Have you
did
looked at other
entertain the
nuances?
slope, and it
Didn't
didn't,
work.
it didn't allow us to tuck it in behind those
Got it.
windows, so we would have had to kept raising those windows higher to
Yep.
get that slope to work.
Thank you.
It takes on a bit of a conservatory look and
Mm-hmm.
a very appropriate for putting a table in the center and the chandelier down in the volume space
Right.
and such, so.
Appreciate it. Only questions I had. So at this stage, we open it up to the floor. So does anybody want to approach the microphone and address the commission? Please introduce yourself.
Good evening. My name is George Covington. I'm a lawyer in Lake Forest. My office is at 500 Northwestern Avenue, and I'm representing Shahab and Melody Farazad, who live at just to the east at 1320 North Sheridan. I've submitted a letter earlier today, so I'm not going to try to repeat everything I said in the letter. I trust you all read it, and I wouldn't bore you with by just reiterating what I said in it. The principal objection that the Farazads have against to this proposal is a three-car garage, and the vast parking area parking area, turnaround area that it involves. We don't think it's necessary, first of all. There seems to be a kind of a tacit assumption on the part of the petitioner that, of course, you have to have a three-car garage, even though this house has had a one-car garage for 90 years. I live in a house that's a large house, and it's on the National Register. I have a one-car detached garage, and I guess I'd like a three-car garage, but it would kind of ruin the house, so I'm not doing it. Coincidentally, I had a client calling me yesterday who lives in an Adler house, not in Lake Forest, but on the North Shore. He paid $8.4 million for it. It has a one-car attached garage, and he decided later on he needed to have more garage space, so he went and studied Adler Designs and built a detached garage that accommodated the additional cars he needed. That could be done here too. There's plenty of room in the back. It would provide a screen against the school, the Sheridan School, which is just located to the north. And if the petitioner or the petitioner's buyers need garage space, they could have a space back there, and they could walk to the house. It's not the end of the world. The reason there are other issues, the lighting, both cars coming and going. There are 4 lights shown on the east elevation. There's the potential that the space would be used for other purposes, even though it's not being designed as a basketball court. You know, kids will be kids, and if they want a backstop there, I suppose parents are going to let them have a backstop. And with those lights, it could involve some night games too. We're concerned about primarily about the loss of the trees. There are at least 5 trees that will be destroyed by this project. These are one of them is a heritage tree. 2 are 24-inch trees, which are just beneath the heritage classification. It's unnecessary. Even the 2-for-1 replacement seems to also involve replacing oaks with arborvitae, which are not native to this area. They're native to the continent, but not to this area, and Norway spruce, which are not even native to the continent. There are some 6-inch oaks that they're talking about replacing, but you got to have a lot of 6-inch oaks to replace 2 24-inch and 1 25-inch. Actually, I think the heritage tree is 28-inch, and then there's another one that's about 16 inches. It's unnecessary, and we hope that this that the petitioner is requested to go and submit some alternatives for parking. I'd like to show a few pictures. There was also some discussion of the screening, and it was all buckthorn. I have to confess I didn't see the screening before it was taken down by the petitioner, so I don't know whether it was buckthorn or not. I have my own personal war against buckthorn, so I can spot it pretty easily. So this is the view from the driveway, the current driveway, and the trees that would be taken down are here and over there, as the petitioner himself has noted.
Those trees would stay. These right here, those would stay.
Thank you. Can I interrupt them when they?
Well, you'll have a chance to come back and clarify. Thank you.
Whether those trees are intentionally cut down or whether they die as collateral damage to the construction of the driveway is almost immaterial. It's pretty hard to. Oaks are sensitive, and the chance of these trees surviving is slim. This is pretty much the same picture, but it does show more clearly the line of the driveway going, which were marked out the other day. Again, you can see the proposed lines, and they extend back here to these trees, and then quite close to the edge of the Farazad property. This is the existing garage, which is has been described by the petitioner as in one submission as tiny, and the other, and tonight, as very, very small. It's, according to the staff report, it's 341 square feet. That's not tiny. If it were a square, it'd be 18 and a half feet on each side. I don't know, it's obviously not a square, but I wish my garage were 341 square feet. And this is the back. I don't know if you can see it. The line of the parking area, turnaround area, would extend back into this lawn, further north than the edge of the house. This is a view looking to the north. This is the Sheridan School. What we're proposing is that a garage could be built in this area, and it would have the incidental benefit of perhaps blocking out the school and kids' noise, et cetera. This is a view towards the Pierpont House located to the north, and you can see that the Pierpont House is essentially invisible. I'm told by my client that that's what the view towards the 1290 house appeared to be before they removed the vegetation that was along their border. And this is the current view. It's as you can see, it's since the vegetation was removed, there's not much of a screen there. I understand that the petitioner is proposing a arborvitae screen that will help, but it's not going to replace the native vegetation, including maybe some buckthorn that was there before. Just to summarize then, we hope that the commission directs the petitioner to go and look at alternatives, including the possibility of a detached garage. The driveway situation for building a detached garage, it could be a fairly narrow driveway along the east side of the house, and to the extent a turnaround is required in front of the detached garage, it wouldn't be impacting any trees. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Covington. Appreciate it. Any other comments? Okay.
Good evening, people. Nice to be here.
Right.
I guess I'm one of the contentious neighbors.
Right.
My house is immediately across from this property, and I've really looked carefully at this plan, and it makes so much sense. It's a 1920 house. You guys all know more about that than I do. I was born and raised in Oak Park. I know about little rooms, little kitchens, and it's not a house that people want in this community. That's why it was up for sale for so long. All these years, people have driven by that because of the curb appeal. They say, I love that house. If it ever comes up for sale, call me. I really want that house. I'm telling you, many people. But it stopped at the curb. The tiny den at the back of that was an addition in the 70s was ridiculously small. It was small because they were attempting to save a very large oak tree, which of course died 2 years later. It wasn't appropriate for the house, and they couldn't change the kitchen, so now you still have the little kitchen and the little family room that nobody in this community wants, particularly people in this area. A one-car garage is unviable in this neighborhood. I am just miffed at the contemplation that you seem to think that a one-car garage is acceptable. That wasn't acceptable when I was a kid. You have to have more than a one-car garage in today's demographic. It just doesn't work any other way. And putting a garage on the back of that lot is completely illogical. All you're talking about is adding an 8-foot addition, literally, on that elevation, which is nothing, and affording a situation of allowing a 3-car garage, which I would have loved to have had on the side. I had 5 architects on my house, couldn't do it. I ended up having to have the garages on the front, which I didn't want. So that's why the house couldn't sell, and it won't sell. If this is allowed to happen, this is a perfect plan for that house. And it will appreciate the value of that home and the tax base associated with that home. It's appropriate, it's intelligent, and it works. And it shouldn't be objectionable by anybody. Particularly, I'm the guy that's across the street. If somebody were going to be upset about something, maybe it should be me, because I have to look at it. And they're not changing anything. It was such a great design. The trees. We have to talk about the trees. When I purchased my property, it was considered to be a wooded lot. More than 30% of the property were trees. Lots of oaks, maples, ash, whatever. I have been a very good steward to my property for many years. I've had to replace so many trees and had so many removed. I know that this particular property in question has had to have at least 5, if not 6, large oak trees removed. Oak trees don't like living up here anymore. I lost almost all of my oak trees, some of them 30 inches over the years. My wife and I were once standing in my backyard, beautiful sunny day, and I looked at a 5-foot-story oak, just perfect oak, just fall into my neighbor's yard. So whether those trees are viable or not viable is kind of, well, we're losing our trees right and left, and maybe they wouldn't have existed anyway, or maybe they wouldn't have lasted long term anyway. I know I've removed, in the last 2 years, 12 or 14 ash trees. I've lost most of my major oaks. I'm down to one really gorgeous specimen oak, but that's all I have left. So I don't want to hang a lot on the oak tree thing. The screening that they propose is significantly better than the screening they had before. That's, you know, what they're going to do, which is appropriate for this consideration, is going to give them more privacy and more screening than they had to begin with. And those ugly buckthorns, that's what they were. If there's any question about the buckthorn thing, this is a picture the upside down. That's the property that the owner, the person that's complaining about this addition, that's his landscaping on our lane that he suggests he's on. He is not on our lane. He has not paid for any road work, any snow stuff. He just is there, but he's not, you know, we don't even know who he is. I've lived there for 30 some odd years. This is his side of the entry into our lane. Again, his address is not on that sign. He's not part of the lane, as he claims to be. This is the opposite side of the entry. Now, that's what it's supposed to look like. That's what the neighbor on the opposite side has as a way of landscaping for his property, because he really is a person of the lane, not a bunch of buckthorns with no, you know, the only time they ever touch that piece of that parcel along the lane is when they, in the fall, when leaves are removed, and I don't even know who does that. So this assertion that they're part of the lane and part of this whole process is not really genuine. How could I live with someone that's supposedly on my street or lane and not know, wouldn't be able to recognize him in the store if I saw him? He's never spoken to me. I don't know who he is. So he's not on the lane. He didn't pay for resurfacing the road. He doesn't pay for the maintenance of the road. He doesn't do anything except have a shabby patch of land along it. I don't know why he should be having any great impact on this incredibly well-designed, well-thought-out plan. And he's got a pool house that's right against it. His house is well off. This is not encroaching on any setbacks or anything like that, and he's going to be screened, and it's not going to adversely affect his property in any logical way that I can think of. It can only be better. So that's where I stand. Right. And I am one of the people, and I know that there are several more people on my lane that are not, what was the word you used, Carol?
I'm not sure. Contentious?
Contentious, yes. I don't think there's a lot of contention. Does anybody have any questions? I love trees more than anybody. I've spent gazillions of dollars on my trees, but they keep leaving us, and so will some of those, trust me.
We appreciate your comments, thank you. All right, you're up next. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Your work is a very important piece of maintaining and preserving Lake Forest. My name is Shahab Fatazam. My wife and I moved here from New York about 21 years ago and moved into 1320 Sheridan about 18 years ago. And contrary to what you just heard, one of the reasons we loved living in this neighborhood is we had a tremendous relationship with all the neighbors that were contiguous to our house, including the neighbor that sold his property to Mrs. Ardoni, and of course the Pierponts opposite our house, very good friends of ours, and people on the other side of the road, and the school, of course, to the north. But this gentleman is correct. When you go down that lane, we don't know too many people down the lane. We knew some people at the end who sold their house. They moved, and Mr. Servieri is now living there. I think he's a petitioner, a complainant as well. But there are 2 or 3 neighbors in that street that was mentioned to you that we don't know, but we know everybody else extremely well, and I think the best way to know that is some of the letters they have written, and we've had a tremendous relationship with all our neighbors. When we moved into this area, we were particularly taken by the historic nature of the area, and our house, which was built in 1926 with an extension from Stanley Anderson, has a 1-car garage. Yes, people can live with 1-car garages. We looked to see whether we could make a 2-car garage out of the 1-car garage, and we quickly realized that it's going to do 2 things. Trees will have to be removed. There's no way around that. And the integrity of the architecture of 1926 will be destroyed and gone forever. So we decided to live with a 1-car garage. And so we have 3 cars. 2 of the cars are outdoors, and 1 of them is inside. Unfortunately, that's my wife's car. So we've managed to live with it very comfortably, and we're still alive to talk about it. As far as the plans that were put in front of you, yes, we are obviously very sensitive to somebody moving in, improving a house, making it livable, and who are we to get in the way of anybody's plans to do that for their family? So nothing against that at all. Our concern principally is the 3-car garage. Everybody who has said it's a lovely thing to do isn't looking at it from we're being whitewashed out of this issue, but we're the ones that are going to be facing it directly. Yes, we have a pool and a pool house right beyond this fence that is going to be marginally or questionably fenced, which, I like some of the things I've heard about some of the trees being built that are replacing the ones that are being destroyed and all the rest of it. But the amount of asphalt that potentially is going to be built there, first of all, I wonder whether it's the appropriate level for the house and for the extensions being used. And we have a very bad problem in terms of drainage of the houses around us, and we're very concerned that the drainage will seep into our property from the cement that's going to be built, the extra amount of cement that's going to be built. These are issues that are very difficult to fix after the fact, and we're very concerned about that. So, don't want to regurgitate some of the issues that were raised, but we are neighbors with the biggest contiguous line with this property. I know we've been trying to whitewash, being whitewashed away from this discussion, but we are actually the most relevant component of what we are trying to say and object to in terms of this construction. I would like to reiterate, because of the historic commission that you are, I think there are many economic changes that can occur in Lake Forest that will increase the tax base, that will make houses more livable, skyscrapers can be built. I mean, all sorts of things can be done. You're absolutely right. Whether it's right to do that, whether it's historic, whether it's going to preserve the quality of life in Lake Forest, that's another issue. I think economics is certainly part of it, but it shouldn't be driver of our decisions. So with that, I thank you for your attention and look forward to the debate and dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you again for your comments. Anyone else? Please, introduce yourself.
Hello. Thank you. My name is Laura Gordon. I live in the house to the west of the Zordanis. And I actually believe our property is the most, we share the most amount of property with the Zordanis. Our home is much closer in proximity to the Zordanis' home than yours is. We're much, much closer. And we have no objections to the work being done. I can say we've been there 9 years, and I personally have seen 3 trees in the past 9 years, maybe more than that, I'm not sure, that have come down. One of them on the home, one of them was kind of in between our homes, and then there's kind of a little wooded area in back, and there's been a bunch of trees back there that have come down too, like oaks and different big trees that have just come down just naturally. Also, in the past 9 years, we were very close with the family that the Zordanis bought the home from, and we, did lane parties, we did different kinds of things, and we didn't really have any kind of relationship with the family objecting. The only other family that was not there was the people on the corner, but they own other homes and they're frequently not there anyways. Their home is for sale. Also, during the 9 years I've lived there, I just kind of came in, and the Hoffmans, who the Zordanis bought the home from, put me in charge of doing all the collections for, any kind of like a landscape project or the snow plowing, the resurfacing, and it all came from the 5 homes on the lane, which wasn't, we never even were approached. I never even talked to the Hoffmans when they passed the job to me about should we include them. It just wasn't a discussion. So it definitely is. Our home is the closest to the Zordanis in proximity. Our homes are very close, and we have no objection.
Appreciate it. Thank you for coming.
No, thank you.
Anyone else? Please, introduce yourself.
Good evening. My name is Tom Gleason. I'm a board member of the Lake Forest Preservation Foundation. I know you have a little bit of what we wrote about this. Last night we had a board meeting, one of our monthly board meetings, and discussed all the issues presented before you tonight. And I'll just mention the board for the Preservation Foundation came up. If the petitioner's plan is approved, he should join the neighbors to the east, as proposed informally at the last meeting, to the landscape representative on the other property, to replace the screening foliage up to 15 feet or more in height removed before the site was visited by the city. I know tonight there had been a 10 to 12 foot height talk. Collaboration should be part of this process to restore appropriate screening to the benefit of both parties. The foundation would also support an alternative of locating a new 2-car garage northeast of the house, but set back from the neighbor on the east. This would greatly protect the integrity of the Alfred Granger designed house, as it was balanced crosswise along the short side of the street. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Anyone else? All right, before we allow the petitioner to come up, and if you have a rebuttal to any of the comments that were made, any new questions surface for any of my fellow commissioners out of this dialogue?
I have a question for the staff. In relation to the grading issue with the additional hardscaping and cement, is there any concern in terms of negative grading or flooding to the property to the east?
A preliminary grading plan was not submitted. It is ordinarily something that you would see. It does appear that some grading would be required, because it does appear that there's a slight grade change, but at this point, we can't tell you what that change in grade would be or whether curbing would be required to address drainage issues. So I don't have that information for you.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions?
Not at this time.
All right. Any new questions surface for you? No? No? Mr. Wheeler?
I'm just, I think that, the neighbors ought to be, or the petitioner and the neighbors don't seem to have a consensus. And I'm struck by the new correspondence and, some of the information that we were given just prior to the beginning of the, and I can't really digest that just yet. And trees do come and go. I just took down 12 to 14 ash trees, but I've had many other trees on my property that have, they've expired and they've been blown over by the wind. Oak trees are something special, though, and they are very fragile. So any work that's done is going to be a problem for the oak trees. They may survive, they may not survive. I've always tried to, take them into consideration, but understand that these houses are, I believe, meant to evolve, and I think they, they ought to be livable. They ought to be. We ought to be able to modify them to support our lifestyles and our needs. I too have a single car garage. I would love to have just a larger garage, but it won't be attached because it just won't fit with my house. So I've been dusting off snow for many winters with the outside, with keeping the cars outside. So this is really a kind of a tough decision, and I don't know which way to go.
But no more questions at this point until, because we'll get to our dialogue.
We'll get to that.
We'll get
yeah.
to that, yes. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay.
Commissioner Gill, any other questions that came out of this discussion?
No further questions.
Okay, great, thank you. Petitioner, you're invited back to, if you want to put up a rebuttal to some of the comments that were shared by some of the neighbors.
Yeah, hi, I'm Don Sardani, 1290. We've been scrutinized on this property. The one-car garage is prehistoric. It was added on originally in the back. I think they had about 5 feet because the cars kind of have grown over the years. I'm not sure what date that happened, but next week I'll have 7 drivers in the family. I don't think the city would like to see 7 cars in the front. We're trying to preserve the neighborhood, put cars in the back. Originally we thought maybe the front elevation, the front single-car garage, since it was part of the front facade, it made sense. We listened to the board. We came back. Good, positive feedback was addressed. Staff came back with the portico share, and so we should set it back. Hasn't really determined how far. I would suggest maybe 3 feet versus the architect Jonathan suggesting plus or minus 2 feet. So at least you have 3 feet. You can actually get, if the mailman comes, if the UPS box, etc., it would be protected. Okay, so I respect that. I also respect that I have property rights. Okay, We've been developing properties, for 18 years in this community, from historic, from preservation awards, et cetera, and we've never had a problem. If I'm asked to go double inch for inch replacement over existing situation, we have a fence that's falling down that's not conforming, it should be addressed. We have floodlights that are on from 8 o'clock at night to 5 in the morning, and we're asked to follow the new guidelines. So we come back and we say we're going to put gas lanterns on. We're going to follow the dark sky. So we've addressed everything possible for the petition, for the board. All the guidelines from historic preservation have asked, and we're addressing everything possible for a neighbor with 12-foot trees that exist. They don't exist now. So I'm a little concerned of what more we can do for one neighbor when I'm supporting my lane and my private lane for my neighbors, and being, a good neighbor by putting a lot of money and also sheltering out the school. Putting a detached garage, I can't possibly see how we can drive through the side of the property and not destroy less trees than what we're trying to do. So if you have a better suggestion, I'm more than happy to listen to it. But we're pushing 8 inches and we're 8 feet out, and we're trying to use the existing part of the garage. So we're really being sensitive to the site. So anything else, I welcome you guys. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And now turn over to staff. Any reactions or comments that you have based on any of the public testimony or anything else? Or
I think the only thing I wanted to clarify was the square footage of the garage. I just wanted to clarify that that number is actually the building scale calculation, the measurement of bulk, so that doesn't correlate directly with the square footage.
Okay, great.
And I would just clarify that the commission is required to look at the 17 standards, and less about who's friends with who. I think really looking at the integrity, the historic integrity of the home, of the site, and impacts on neighboring properties. And sometimes the impacts are greatest on properties that aren't necessarily on the same street. So it's a challenging petition, and yet this is a property we do want to see updated and made to be a desirable property forever for whoever might step up and buy it.
Great. It's helpful input. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, so it's back to us. Commissioner Gale, not to just put it on you, but we'll have a discussion among ourselves because we have to come up with some resolution
I find
this
this
evening.
one very difficult. It appears to be, as I said before, and it apparently did not sit well with some listeners, but I think it is contentious, with a contentiousness that started in the first round, and then rather than being alleviated, it has gotten only more entrenched. I also hear what staff says, what Kathy has said about there being a number of values that have to be represented, and that this is complicated and ends up with a lot of something on one hand, something on the other hand. So I am at a loss.
Okay, great. Well, you know what, maybe I will jump in and put a framework around this, maybe to guide our dialogue a little bit. And it's in line with what Kathy said in terms of we do have to kind of double ourselves back and say we have guidelines that we look at and ask ourselves whether or not we are adhering to those. So if I missed any, please anybody jump in. But I'll tell you the ones that come up that I think we have to have some discussion about. There is a lot of discussion about the trees themselves. So there is a question of whether or not the petitioner is looking to make a change to the property that is impacting the trees in a way that we believe could be done somehow, some other way, that they could be preserved differently, or if the garage somehow could be oriented in a different place to preserve more trees. So I'd ask that we put the whole tree discussion in a single box and ask ourselves that. What's conditioned against that is the question of whether or not we believe that the way the garage is being added to the home whether or not that goes against any of our standards. In other words, architecturally, is it doing it in a way that we think is sensitive to the home, the various facades, but especially the front, and as other alterations are made to the facade, whether or not those are being done thoughtfully and again in concert with the look of the home. Some of the other issues like grading and drainage and so forth, and I would turn back to city staff for that, but certainly in my experience, those are always going to be conditions of approval. We're not going to let anything happen that's going to now create some kind of horrible impact on the neighbors. So that could be adjusting the plantings, that may be working with the city arborist, and you sound open to those things. But those are ones that I think our assumption, or my assumption, would be that, of course, those would be addressed as we go forward. Outside of that, I don't know, and I would, ask my fellow teammates up here, so to speak, commissioners, whether or not you think there are any other groupings, because those are the two that I think really drive our discussion, whether or not we're comfortable with the fact that we're adding a garage, adding the extra footage to accommodate the garage. Obviously, you have to access a garage, and there has to be a driveway to get to it. And if the driveway is being oriented in a thoughtful way to get there, then all of a sudden you look at the collateral damage, so to speak, and say some trees have to go out as a result of that. And so we ask ourselves, is that, in doing so, is that acceptable? And then the condition of that, and we've talked about it, and again, it would be done with the arborist and being thoughtful, and you've put together some thoughtful plans on how you would put up the different amount of trees. But there are, the mindset there is there are accommodations that can be made by adding more plantings throughout the property that can enhance that and accommodate the fact that some have been lost. So that accommodation actually is out there. So that's the other thing we have to ask ourselves, is that an acceptable accommodation? So I don't know if that helps or not, and not to steal your thunder,
No, that's...
Commissioner Wheeler, but I think if we speak to those, at least it allows us to be a little more articulate in terms of what we're either agreeing with or disagreeing with, and it becomes instructive to the petitioners. So so if you want to break those down, maybe let's start with the garage. Why don't we start there? And any thoughts in terms of the design of the garage and how it fits with the home itself and our various conditions that we have to look at?
Well, the existing structure, I don't know that it supports that. It has a variety of different roof styles. So, the new garage is a hip roof. It's not totally out of character. I mean, we have a kind of a broad palette of shapes from which to select. The way the garage works with the house, I think it's not an unnatural evolution for the house.
Okay.
So with that said, and the tree thing is, I mean, that can make or break, your plan to add on to the house. The rest of the elements, I think that's fine. I have concerns about the octagonal shape butting up against the bay window, which is basically a hexagon, half of a hexagon. So, but I'm sure that the architect can make that work. But we're expanding what looks from the street like a really excellent house, and from the street view, you're not adding on that significant amount of street frontage.
Right.
So the garage extends out towards the east a little bit. So I'm inclined to say this is okay, but I would like to have neighborhood approval. I'd like to have everybody on board with this.
Yep.
I would, if there weren't so many trees coming down. The screening thing, I think, can be solved. So I don't think that's a worry. We have the demolition criteria. I think these, we have to kind of start somewhere.
Yep.
And I think all of those are valid.
Yep.
I think those are all approvable. And I think the standard 11 directional expression of front elevation, I think we have a solution there. Standard 13, the preservation of natural resources, we have an issue there. So that's kind of where I am now.
All right, great, I appreciate it. All right, Commissioner Alfie.
Well, as I look at the plan, to me, it does not seem possible to put a garage in the rear and a driveway access to it without taking virtually the same amount of trees out. So given adding a garage, which I accept as something that would be desirable to the owner, I don't see a way around, unfortunately, the tree removal. But I feel that with the amount of circumference, trees, we should be able to achieve a pretty good screening for everybody.
Okay, I appreciate it. Commissioner Sperry?
So my observation is that we're obviously dealing with a property that is suffering from functional obsolescence. This is not a property based on its bulk, on the size of the lot, which it in any way would warrant a one-car garage if built today. Based on the comments from my colleagues and the petitioner as well as the landscaper, it appears that there is not, at this point, a viable alternative to save these trees, as majestic and wonderful as they are, which again removes the major impediment to moving forward with this. I would simply ask, and again, I don't know if this is a reference to staff, whether this comes back to us, but I would ask the petitioner to be sensitive to his neighbor to the east in regards to sight lines, lighting, the screening between the properties, such that there's an amicable resolution here. I also noticed that the roof on the proposed 3-car garage is copper. Are there other roofing in the front facade that's copper as well, or is there an additional, perhaps you could just illuminate us. That's the only piece I noticed that was copper.
Currently, I think, is there some on the bay window or no? Don, I don't recall. I don't believe there's any copper on the house as it exists.
Okay.
But the shallow pitch that we're using to maintain the height at the sill of the windows that are existing, it doesn't function technically with any kind of shingle that would have ice damming and that kind of thing. So,
I see.
It could be, I believe we might be using like a zinc coated or some kind of something to give it more of a patina immediately, kind of a grayish. But otherwise, if it goes up shiny copper, in 2 weeks' time, it's brown and it would be consistent with at least a soft look to the rest of the house.
I appreciate you addressing that. Again, just in sensitivity to our neighbors to the east, we just don't want a glaring reflective surface. So thanks for clarifying. And that's it on my paper.
All right.
Yeah.
If you would come up and quickly, I'd appreciate it, and then we're closing up comments.
So I've heard the word contentious mentioned a few times tonight. This is the last thing my wife and I want to see is contentiousness in this neighborhood. Maybe it was an accident or not, but we never knew about the first petition. We found out by accident and so on and so forth. And nobody's knocked on our door to indicate what they're planning to do, how we would work together and so on. We're very open to that. I hate the word contentiousness, particularly as it comes to neighbors. So we at least are very open to sitting down with the petitioner and working things out amicably and so on. The last thing we want is a neighbor who can't stand our guts. So just wanted to mention
I appreciate that. All right, great. All right, well, I will, again, put out some summary thoughts, and then we'll put this up for a vote. Again, I'm trying to break this down into what do we agree with or disagree with, and what are the component parts. So one thought that comes to mind for me is, let's pretend that the extension to the home is not a garage. It could be an aviary, it could be anything. And so if the petition came before us and we were looking at it, there's no impact on trees, no impact on driveway or impermeable surfaces. And we were looking at that from all the different facades, and we looked at the roofing materials, the angle of it, the extension of it and everything else, would we or most people say, I'd really stand up and object to it? My sense is from the comments, and again, I'm trying to summarize what I'm hearing from all fronts as to whether or not there's a big issue with that. I'm not hearing that too much, nor as I look at our guidelines, whether or not that's a breach of any of our guidelines. I think it's accepting of the lines of the home. So where are we making the greatest changes, actually? It's changing out a garage door to something else that is a facade feature. And we think that it's been addressed and done in a sensitive manner, and the glass work that's put in there matches other elements of the home. So I think we would feel comfortable with that. Then we have the other space, which was the infill, and I think we would all agree that that is a big feature of the home. And once again, a solution has been put forth by staff as a way that we could accommodate that. And I think our collective judgment and the comments that were made in the room is you're willing to work with that. And it sounds like there's going to have to be a little give and take. I think everybody's appreciative of the fact that you don't want to have the setback so great in there that all of a sudden it's just this little narrow pathway and you can't make any use of it. And I think staff is sensitive and appreciative of that. So it's not up for a vote, but is there a head nod to say that at least as it relates to what that structure is, forgetting that it's a garage and the impact on trees, that we're comfortable with that in and of itself from a design standpoint meets our standards? Is that from a head nod standpoint?
Yeah.
So if that's done, then all of a sudden we now take it back to the trees. And the comments on contentiousness, yeah, it's too bad the word got thrown around a whole lot. When I hear that, it just means disagreements. I mean, by the nature of everybody up here, we are bound by certain guidelines, and if we say something passes by the guidelines, it doesn't mean that other people will like it. And so you could say, well, there's some, some contention there. But it really is, there may be some disagreement on aesthetics and some other things. As a group, nobody likes to see trees lost here, for whatever the reason may be. Right. Nature, age, whatever, they're beautiful, it's a big part of the area, but there is an evolution there. And so the question here is, in order to achieve what we believe is acceptable, to have that structure, that extension there, and it happens to be a garage, for that garage to function, you have to get into it. And that means you've got to be able to drive in and get out and so forth. And I don't think there's been heavy discussion about the impermeable surface, where in some cases where we talk about where there's a big slab everywhere and they say it looks horrible. So it doesn't seem as though it's taken up too much land space. So now it gets down to the trees. I don't know if we're in a position to debate whether or not they're going to live or not longer term. What I would say, and I'm going to let Kathy actually speak to this, there is another condition that relates to how we make accommodations for this. And it's not just how many trees are taken out, and then how do we accommodate for replanting? That formula has already been presented, and you're accommodating that. There's another one, though, that within a period of time, based on the city arborist who would be working with you, that if indeed a tree, and I'll let you speak to how that one works, and it maybe will help some people who are concerned that some of these trees as an impact of some of these changes may be impacted.
A couple thoughts in addition to that. If you choose to move forward, an additional condition that you might add is that we do believe there's going to need to be some grading on that side. Again, we normally would have that information at this point. That wasn't submitted. So I think we would want a condition, and it may be that the level of that driveway is dropped to maintain the grades as close to existing grades as possible. Second, to consider possibly a pervious surface for the driveway, or part of that to be a pervious surface, and in addition to use a construction technique that limits excavation and instead works to rest the driveway on top. We do believe that more than the trees identified will be lost within a 3 to 5 year period. And to speak to that, once the driveway is in, we would recommend that the city arborist actually go out and inspect the remaining trees on the site, and if in fact those appear to be have been fatally damaged, then we would require additional inch-for-inch plantings. And just to be clear, inch-for-inch plantings for heritage trees, and the tree, any tree over 18 inches is considered a heritage tree and is very specifically protected by our ordinance. The replacement inches really need to be in substantial native species as specified by the city arborist. And it may very well be that all of those trees cannot be located on this property. In fact, we would not expect consistent with good forestry practices, that they could.
Right.
But they could be located in other areas of the neighborhood to help to reestablish a very significant canopy that's going to be lost. I think in one of the photos that you saw, all of the trees that you were looking at, all of those will be gone as part of this proposal. So the conditions around the trees can be enhanced to include those items if the commission so desires.
Okay, great. Appreciate it. All right, so unless anyone thinks that I've missed a topic, and you want further discussion, my feeling is at least we should put it up and ask whether or not there is a motion in some direction here.
I want to ask one more question of staff. Is there any kind of is this in a particular district where trees are protected any more so than anywhere else in the city? Is there
The city code
a covenant?
applies consistently throughout, but specifically provides extra protection for heritage trees, which are trees that are in fair to good condition, oak trees or other native species, and trees over 18 inches. One other point I would add, I know the commission encouraged, and staff also encouraged the petitioner to speak with the neighbor to the east. My understanding is that that did not happen. Given that there was no communication there, I would suggest that if you move forward, that we also have a condition that staff reach out to the neighbor to the east. We take on that responsibility because it hasn't happened. And we talk through the landscape plan, the replacement tree planting plan with him and give him the opportunity to offer input. And then finally, lights that are not consistent with the code are proposed on the east side, and particularly in this case, you're removing a lot of vegetation. You're putting a driveway in an active area within the private portion of this house. Those lights really should be consistent with the city requirements and be fully shielded and direct light downward rather than be the coach-type lights.
Okay. All helpful input. You don't mean to just, you're taking good notes, neighbor. Any want to venture on a motion? And the first one, of course, would be appropriateness of the demolition, which would be part of it, and then the others. Yeah, thank you.
Let's go. Okay, I move that we. I move that we approve the petitioner's request for demolition of the property at 1290 Sheridan Road, and that we approve the petitioner's request for remodeling and addition of garage and living space, based on the findings detailed in the staff report and based on the the additional conditions on pages 6, 7, and 8
Really 7 and 8.
of the staff report dated May 25th, with the additional conditions that light shielding be addressed, and that the neighbors get together and achieve some sort of agreement.
Staff reaches out.
And the staff, managed by the staff. Apparently that's right. And that all grading issues be addressed by the city engineer.
Yep.
And approved.
In collaboration with city arborist.
Absolutely, in collaboration with the city arborist.
All right.
Wow.
That's the
Congratulations.
Could I make one?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Any other modification or addition to that?
On that arched opening, I think the part about working in subject with, in consultation with staff is fine. I'd like to drop that no less than 10 feet, though. That may not be doable.
Okay, I think that's a good,
Oh, yeah.
all right.
Okay.
So that'll be included in the motion. All right. So with that, all in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
All right. Well, so majority rules. Motion passes. So there you go. Off you go. Yep. Thank you, everyone, for your input. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Yes.
What's his model? I worked very hard on that.
Oops. Watch out.
All right, as you're setting up, next on our list is consideration of a request for a certificate of appropriateness for a partial demolition, replacement addition, and alterations to the existing residence located at 245 Vine Avenue. In this particular case, a building scale variance is also requested. And ahead of the discussion, I want to confirm there are no conflicts of interest or ex parte communication? Nope.
Nope.
I'm seeing no.
Nope.
So we're all fine there. Thank you very much. All right.
That was agonizing.
Yeah, it was.
All right. Welcome, Diana. Thank you.
We're just trying to get our presentation up.
And make sure your microphone is working. Sounds like it is.
Is it working?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Thank you.
While she's pulling this up, I just want to say good evening. I'm Diana Melikar, Melikar Architects. Jennifer Van Heersley, also Melikar Architects. Also, Susan Amory Weninger, the homeowner at 245 Vine. And Susan Benjamin is here somewhere.
Okay,
She's
great.
also a consultant
Welcome.
of ours. Okay, right, good. In order to understand our petition request, I'd like to first present some plan diagrams of the existing home's construction timeline based on our extensive research. When the home was originally constructed in 1910, the Sanborn maps indicate that the home had an American 4-square footprint, full front porch, and rear porch. As indicated in blue, just 17 years after the home was built, in 1927, a 2-story addition and raised exterior terrace were added to the west. The full front porch was removed, and a curved stair with stoop replaced the porch. The open rear servants' porch of the home was converted into interior space, and a new open servants' porch was added to it. In 1937, a 1-story library room addition and patio were added to the northwest side of the home, as shown in green. At that time, the home also underwent interior renovations on the first and second floors. In 1968, another interior and exterior remodeling of the home occurred. A second-floor master bedroom suite was built on top of the servants' wing and porch, and the existing first-floor servants' spaces were enclosed to create the present-day breakfast room and mudroom laundry room as shown in pink. Then a new rear service porch was added to access the newly enclosed mudroom laundry room. In summary, this plan diagram illustrates all of the additions and renovations of the home over a 106-year period. As you can see, the house is a conglomeration of changes, with only the original stair and dining area remaining relatively intact of the original home. Now I will present images of the outside of the existing home. The home's exterior architecture is a manifestation of the variety of program changes made to it and its growth by accretion. Here are images of the front facade. Note how the 2 large additions from 1927 and 1937 incrementally expand the home's original facade to the right. Key characteristics of the present exterior architecture include simple block-like building masses that emphasize smooth planar stucco walls with random window locations, strong hipped roof forms with projecting overhangs, large bay windows and French door groupings that punctuate the wall surfaces, and a variety of window shapes and styles as a result of the home's growth over time. Here are images of the home looking from the northwest. Notice the large bow window in the 1937 one-story library addition. Here's an image of the home taken from the expansive side yard. 245 Vine Avenue has a special feature that most in-town homes do not, a large side yard. The property is comprised of 2 lots, and the original home was built on one of them. Presently, the large, beautiful yard is partially ignored due to the home's interior configuration that blocks views to this natural asset. Pay attention to the south building addition on the right side of the home. This addition's building massing and building construction are most problematic. I would like to concentrate on this problem at hand and our design request in the next few images. These are close-up images of the existing 1968 addition. This servant's porch turned breakfast room, mudroom, master bedroom suite is neither consistent nor sympathetic with the rest of the home. I will start at the roofline and work my way downward toward the ground to explain its design deficiencies. On the left is a side view image of that addition looking from the western yard. The roof features a gable end on the right side, which is completely contrary to the rest of the home. Yet, a reverse hip end roof connects the addition to the home. Also notice in the image that the addition's roof eave line is raised higher than the uniform eave line of the rest of the home. Lastly, the large aluminum sliding door is not articulated like the other fenestration of the home. In the right-hand image, you can see the offending gable roof. Here is a frontal view of the south addition. The wall planes of the second floor broadly overhang the first floor walls, thereby breaking the planar nature that is consistent on all other walls of the house. The second floor appears to perch on the first floor building mass, and it illustrates in building form that the present south addition's first floor footprint is too narrow to support a major living function of the home. Yet, its location is ideal to view and access the beautiful yard to the south and west. Here is an image of the east side of the south addition. The stucco wall surfaces, the wall terminations, and the foundation walls are a patchwork of materials and building construction. Our main goal is to sensitively correct the south addition's design deficiencies and better connect it to the main home. First and foremost is to correct the bizarre roof line. Second is to extend the second floor walls down to the ground to connect the teetering effect of the master bedroom building mass being perched on the old servant's wing. So we're trying to correct that. This is an image of the existing west elevation on the top and the proposed west elevation on the bottom. In the proposed design, you can see that we have successfully addressed the roof line, roof eave, and the building massing problems. The proposed French door grouping addresses the beautiful yard, and it provides fenestration that is similar to other living rooms within the home. This is an image of the existing south elevation at the top and the proposed south elevation on the bottom. Again, the massing and roof line is corrected in the proposed design. A new bow window in the proposed family room is similar to the existing library bow window. This is an image of the east elevation, existing on the top, and the proposed east elevation on the bottom. The proposed south addition is shown in the bottom image on the left. Here you can see that the new addition is successfully connected to the main body of the house. I will now discuss the remodeling of the 1968 southern addition. Solving our design goals through rebuilding became a major challenge. This diagrammatic series of images explains how to correct the existing addition's problems to achieve the proposed design. First, we need to pour a new foundation adjacent to the existing foundations. Then, we need to provide new first floor framing to extend to the new foundation walls. New first floor exterior walls must be provided and the existing exterior walls removed. Due to the condition of the existing second floor framing and floorboards, the second floor framing requires additional structural reinforcement and entirely new flooring. Second floor walls should be reframed for new openings, and they need to receive the new lowered roof eave. The existing gable roof should be removed and new roof framing provided in a hip configuration that connects appropriately to the main roof. Lastly, the mud crawl space should be dug out to provide adequate access for mechanical runs and a dry concrete slab installed. It became apparent that these necessary modifications are very extensive and cumbersome to fix. Therefore, it is the Wenninger's intention to remove this building addition and reconstruct a new building addition in the same location and the same size. However, the new addition will be compatible with the house, and it will correct the structural and design deficiencies in a more durable and lasting fashion. Here is an image of the proposed first floor south addition footprint and cross-section. Our third design goal was to provide a first floor footprint that was adequate for a family room. The proposed floor plan matches the outline of the 1968 second floor master bedroom footprint. For reference, the dashed red line is the outline of the original first floor servants building footprint. The expansion of this first floor footprint adds nominal square footage to the home, that's the area shown in purple, but is very beneficial to the building form and plan layout. Now I would like to address the east facade side entry. This image shows the existing east elevation above and the proposed east elevation below. This side of the house skirts the driveway and is the least visible facade. In the bottom image, you can see that we have modified the side entry door because the Wenningers would like to use this location as their primary service door to their home. The walls of the proposed side entry will infill below the existing stair bay overhang above, and we will provide a decorative pediment over the service door to demarcate the entry. This new side door allows the Wenningers to remove the existing unsightly southern service porch that you see on the left in the image above. Now I will review the site work. On the left, you can see the existing site plan. In 2 locations, hatched in red, we will be removing excess driveway pavement and providing grassy lawn in its place. On the right is the proposed site plan. Overall, the basic form of the landscape surrounding the home will remain intact. Overgrown, dead, and diseased trees and shrubbery will be removed and replaced with new plantings to revitalize and strengthen the architectural integrity and privacy of the house and yard. A new bluestone terrace will connect the new family room with the other existing terraces. In conclusion, the Wenningers are taking on the stewardship of this property that has suffered from continued benign neglect for many decades. The Wenningers' goal is to retain the historical character and features of the original home while rehabilitating the entire home, including updating its mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems for modern-day living. With minimal changes to the existing building footprint, the proposed south addition and new east side entry will make the house more functional and aesthetically pleasing. Melikar Architects and the Wenningers are also consulting with Susan Benjamin Historic Certifications, as we undertake the rehabilitation work. The Wenningers intend to abide by the Secretary of Interior guidelines for historic preservation and work with the Illinois Historic Preservation Agency. This concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Great, and thank you very much. Kate.
Thank you. The petitioner provided a very comprehensive presentation, a review of the existing conditions, and the proposed addition. The request does include a request for approval of a partial demolition, a replacement addition, and generally the same footprint, and a building scale variance. The home as it exists is already over the allowable square footage. The proposed addition will add approximately 61 square feet to the home. So it does appear both that the demolition criteria are met as well as the building scale variance criteria. So we have recommended the petition as submitted for approval. Thank you.
Wonderful. Great, thank you. All right, open it up for questions.
I've got a couple. Diana, could you explain or just tell us what the pitch of that new wing going out is slightly different on your drawings from the pitch of the main roof. What is the thinking there? What is
Sure. You can see that the existing up above, we started out by saying we were going to rebuild in kind and correct the roof. But then what we were looking to do was also keep the bulk down on that roof and try and get that so that the rear addition was basically subordinate to the rest of the house. Now, we could certainly raise it up, but it adds square footage.
Right.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, if you look at the side elevation, it doesn't matter whether it's the west or the east, is what you can see there is that by adding the hip, which you can't see the neighbor to the east, but the neighbor to the east, actually their house ends at the same point as our house does. And so by going from the gable up above on the top to the hip down below, you're cutting back another 7.5 feet of view going so they can see more green space. So we were trying to keep that ridge down.
Okay.
We could certainly raise it up. But
Also, I don't know if it's, any thought is given, is there any thought to try and do something to sort of make that base of all that very base sort of look a little more uniform in any way?
You mean the actual foundation wall?
Yeah, the 2.5 or whatever it is.
Sure.
3 feet thick.
The foundation wall around the perimeter has a lot of brick. We were considering, we were actually thinking that maybe we would put forms in the concrete to give it that look like it is brick, but since it's all painted, it didn't make much sense for a mason to come out and brick all of it when it was just going to be painted. So we'd like to consider that, but.
But it may look, you may do something to make at least uniform color or something like that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. We're going to be working on that all through.
Just to escape me with you, I'll come back to it. I forgot what I was saying.
We'll come back to it. Go ahead.
I have no further questions.
No questions?
Yeah.
I had, my only question was that the new roof pitch, where it's not continuous with the old roof, but I know that there are problems. You have a splayed roof condition on the old house, on the main part of the house. And does that present a problem with this new roof?
No. So if you look at the cross section, we're doing the same thing where we, you can see there that.
Oh,
it's flanged.
Sort of that. And that happens on the rest of the house as well. So when we go and rebuild it, we're dropping that down so that the eave is, so it should all match the house.
I just remembered my other question. What are you going to do with the, you're putting new stucco, obviously, on the addition. Are you going to paint or something the rest of it? Or,
Well,
'cause it's kind of
the
off
homeowners
color
really kind of like the original, sort of that aged appearance to the original stucco. So we're going to see whether we can match that. If we can't, then we're going to have to figure out a way to marry the pieces together, and it may be that we have to purge over the original one.
It's a little bit mottled. It may be hard to achieve that. But.
It may be that it has to have a coat over it and make it all fit together.
Thank you. Did you have any more?
No.
Okay. Commissioner Dial?
None, no questions.
Great. I don't have any either, at least nothing above and beyond what was already brought up. So with that, anyone in the audience who'd like to come up and approach the bench?
Hi, Tom Gleason again
Yes.
with the Lake Forest Preservation Foundation. The foundation supports the staff recommendations and the petitioner's commitment to maintaining the historic integrity of this house. So, looks great.
Oh, great. Thank you. Any further commentary from anybody? Staff, any other questions come up? So now for discussion. Who wants to start? It sounds fairly straightforward. I'm not to bias anybody, but actually, Commissioner McGill, why don't you start?
Well, it sounds fairly straightforward, I would say. I think that the presentation covered the points. I think it's very laudable that the owners, the new owners, want to preserve the historic character. It's certainly a very appealing neighborhood with these old houses, and it seems to me that this is entirely in keeping with it. And it looked to me that this house is no bigger than the house just to the, it depends on which way I'm facing, I realize, but to the south, I guess it is, that it's very much that the additional square footage is trivial in keeping, it's certainly in keeping with the neighborhood. And I think it seems like a very fine way to keep the historic building while changing it for good usage. And happily, in this case, you also don't have any, have to cut down any trees.
Thank you, Commissioner Wheeler.
I think this is a nice job. It's getting rid of well, the previous addition is kind of a turkey. And I think, this cleans it up, and I'm fully supportive.
Wonderful, great, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's very well done. I'm anxious to see it completed.
Good, great.
I concur with my colleagues. It's a thorough and well thought out plan, and I am in agreement with it.
Wonderful. I certainly agree with my colleagues. It's interesting that when you go through what's happened to it over the years in more detail, you realize that it's probably the greatest chore was to figure out what was there originally and what are you trying to match. So, on the one hand, it gives you a lot of leeway. On the other hand, it gives you a little leeway because you really want to be, careful and not pretend that there was something there that wasn't, and vice versa. So, but especially because of the historic nature of that area and the homes around there, I think it's fantastic that it'll get closer to what it was originally and fit in very nicely. This is more of an observation just to throw out there, and it really doesn't even fall within our purview necessarily, but one thing that's interesting about a number of the homes on Vine is, and it may have been part of the way people lived back then, that they wanted more privacy. I don't know if it's because of the size of the lots or whatever, but a lot of people actually have fencing in the front and some other things to really protect the space there, and it's going to end up being a very nice home, and I don't know if there's any consideration actually to make sure that rather than have kind of the peeping views from the driveway themselves, that actually it opens up a little bit more, and you could have more vegetation as screening rather than have any kind of walled materials around, but just more of an observation to open up some of those beautiful properties on Vine. So I'm also very supportive. I think it's done very thoughtfully, and a lot of the engineering work that nobody will see, but it has to be done, is also being done thoughtfully, so I think that's great. So with that, put it up. I don't know, it seems to be falling on you this evening. I'll try and rotate through the years. But you've been doing such a good job so far.
Well, I don't know about that last one.
You got through it.
You
That's what
covered
counts.
all
I
the
appreciate it.
important
So,
points.
if you want to put up a motion, that'd be great.
Well, I move that we recommend approval of a certificate of appropriateness for 245 Vine Avenue for partial demolition and an addition and alteration as presented to the commission, and recommend approval of building scale variance of up to 658 square feet. And modification of the driveway is also recommended for approval. And this motion is subject to the following, to the conditions of approval in the staff report on pages 6 and 7. The staff report, May 25th.
Wonderful.
So, that's the motion.
I appreciate it.
Second.
Second. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Quiet? Obviously got everybody, so approved. Okay, yeah. Wonderful. We're probably just going to take a 2 or 3 minute break, so with the next petitioners would just get themselves ready just to use whatever they need to do to take a break. We've been sitting for a while, so, and we'll start right up.
Okay.
Well done.
You've become
I
a
just-
pro overnight.
Oh, hardly. John was so...
But you're doing great. Don't.
Okay. I have some work to do.
Worried to hear the news.
Yeah.
Couple of big booms.
Oh, man.
Hopefully, no loss in trees.
And I've lost enough of them without
Mhm.
any help.
All right.
In their house.
Okay.
Taken down 16.
Everyone's, all right. So with that, in the final of the evening, unless other items surface at the end, but this is for consideration of a request for a certificate of appropriateness for additions and alterations to the existing residence located at 540 Pine Lane. So if you would introduce yourself, please, and we look forward to hearing your presentation.
Sure. My name is Victoria Lidstrom. I am an architectural designer and interior designer with a company called Leggy Bird Designs. We are in Lake Bluff, and we've been designing homes for many, many years, and we have experience with building them that goes back to my dad, who was a civil engineer. My partner, Carol, is here, and our intern, Ashley, who's an architecture major, and our client, Albert Zoller, right here, and Carl Strasburger, who is also, he's an architect, and he will be doing the general contracting on this project. And we are, I know you're familiar with the house because you've received the presentation. This slide shows the location of the property, which is off a quiet little lane on Sheridan Road. A beautiful ravine property. The house is tucked in at the back of the lane, and a very small portion of the south side of the house and the 3-car garage addition that was done in 1998 is basically visible from the street right here, Pine Lane. This shows the direct neighboring properties around the house, and then it's all ravine all around it, so the properties outside of there are not impacted, at least in my opinion, by the house, what we want to do. These are the surrounding properties, different styles, 1950s. There is one kind of classic, more architecturally interesting home here. Otherwise, we have some, 1950s ranches, et cetera, on the street. This shows some of those properties. We did get a steep slope survey as requested so that we could see the true building lines and determine whether or not the fireplace, which we are adding right here at the back of the family room on the property, would be conforming with the zoning, and it did. It was within our lot lines and does not need a variance there. I just want to add, we are not taking down any trees for this proposal, and we are not doing any major additions. We are adding a fireplace, which is approximately 3 feet by 8 feet. The home currently only has one fireplace, which a home of this status and in this neighborhood, that's highly unusual, and it will be in the master bedroom. So we're adding a fireplace in a family room that will be also enjoyed from the outside back of the property, which faces the ravine, and truly only seen by the people enjoying it or the deer. In this slide, we show the area of request, which by now I'm sure you're familiar with. We want to add the fireplace on the back of the house and create a gable that supports a more modern feel. The home was designed by architect Boyd Hill. His original architecture he was known for were buildings like the Aragon Ballroom, if you're familiar with it, kind of a Romanesque, very gaudy style. And after World War II, he came back a different man and wanted to simplify his design and his structures, as well as bring the indoors out, which makes a lot of sense for this ravine property. Bringing windows all the way to the floor For the most part in this home, all windows are vertical, except where they could not be vertical, which is in a kitchen where you have counters. And in a bedroom, 2 bedrooms where there were desks for children. There is an area on the back of the property where there will be an office. And we would like to, because of the very low ceiling height, only about 6'8", we would like to put a small gable dormer right there so that we can, a shed dormer, so that we can just get a door. We're not doing any additions, just a door right at the surface and a small shed dormer so that we can do that. On the front of the house, there are 2 dormers that were added in 1998 when the garage addition was added. And those 2 dormers, we would like to remove them. They really complicate the look of the house. They are different heights. We want to bring this home back to a simpler form, but we also want to make an identifiable front entry, which there really isn't. So by centering a front entry right here, maybe I have a better slide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a little easier to see. Right now you can see these 2 dormers that were done in 1998 are of different heights, and they're just a little strange. And it would be nice to bring the roof line back to the simple form that it had and create more symmetry and a front entry here that's distinguishable and identifiable. We are doing a gable over that front door and to create an entrance and to help the horizontal nature of this ranch home, which does have a lot of vertical voids. We are adding a pergola on each side of, I don't know if it's the next slide, maybe not, a pergola on each side of the front gable to bring the massing some texture and simplicity. This shows the area of request in the back office. You can kind of see from the woods here, it faces a ravine, and these windows were added in the 1998 addition because this used to be a garage. So we just want to get a door right here so we can have access to walk out to the ravine. This area on the back of the home, where you can see is all windows, 6-7 foot windows all the way to the floor, all the way across the back. We are adding a fireplace right here that can enjoy an outdoor fireplace to enjoy the ravine and an indoor fireplace with a gable over it. So we will be getting rid of, as I said, these 2 dormers and removing this recessed entry right here over kind of to the side. And these images are taken not from the street, but from a west angle of the property that is never seen from the street. Removal of these windows so that we can do our additions. Boyd's original drawings, which we did get a hold of, are just kind of fun. You have them in your pamphlet showing, his original floor plans, his windows, and you've seen this. These are the 1998 renovation drawings when they added these 2 dormers and the 3-car garage and changed the old garage into 4 bedrooms. The new drawings, again, are not adding any additions per se. We're adding this front entry and a pergola over it. You can see here the floor plan, and right here is, we don't need to go into the demo floor plan. The roof plan, there were some questions, some discrepancies in our drawing, and you can't really see this. Can I give you a reworked plan, or Is that kosher?
Sure.
I mean, you can hand it up. It's helpful, certainly.
There was a discrepancy on the roof plan that got turned in, and a question about the front gable addition for the front entry, where it met the main ridge line, and it doesn't meet the main ridge line. So this drawing is correct. And this drawing is too, but you can't really see it on here. So the front of the home will now have a new identifiable entry. We got rid of these two dormers, so it simplifies the lines. We are creating a doorway here out to a beautiful front courtyard. We're strong believers in Boyd Hill's belief, which was bringing the indoors out and enjoying both the outside and the inside. Does that mean I need to step it up? Okay,
Yeah,
you've kind of seen most of it. Let me cruise through here, and if you have questions, tell me. This is the back gable with the fireplace, the indoor-outdoor fireplace, and that's kind of a little 3D of that change. And I don't know if you have any questions as I go through these. This was that back door leading off of the office, and we're getting rid of windows that were added in 1998 and just putting in some new French doors. This is actually pretty much how the house looks from the street view. And then this is the west view. This, as was stated, unidentifiable object, which is goofy, is going to be a simple fountain. And I don't know how it got stuck in there, but it did. So it's just going to be a pretty fountain. It won't look anything like that. And you can see here the pergola going across the front entry. And that's it.
Great. Appreciate it. Before I go to staff, just want to confirm no conflicts of interest, no? All right. Seeing none? All right, great. Kate?
Thank you. So this petition is really a request for facade modifications with the intention of incorporating a slightly different style than what's existing on the home, and to identify the front entryway and make some of the spaces more functional and livable for the owner. So the home is designed by a prominent architect, Boyd Hill. Does appear that it's had several modifications over the years, including the hip dormers that are proposed for removal. Staff is very supportive of removing the dormers. It will be truer to the original intention of the home, improve the overall roof lines of the house. So we're looking really for the commission's direction on, first, if there's enough information and if the commission is comfortable enough with introducing new design elements, new roof lines into the existing low horizontal ranch home. And if so, is the proposed design consistent with the chosen style and applied consistently on all elevations? So we have provided two different options depending how the commission feels about the petition. One, to either continue it with a request for more information, or to approve it and subject to the conditions in the staff report. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Open for any questions you might have for the
I got a lot of them.
All right. Then why don't you start?
Well, let's start with the front elevation. In some of these notes here, it says here that the pergola is heavy timber beam support on painted steel tube. I can't figure out where the tubes are.
I don't know what painted steel tube, I don't remember that, but on the front elevation right here, we are proposing that this beam going across here, rather than being wood, be steel. Basically a steel beam to bring a little, the house has brick, charcoal windows that are gray and look like steel, like Hope windows, very industrial yet. So we're trying to stay with the more modern, as well as you know, iron is an earth element. So we were proposing that this be an iron beam with the wood pergola, wood beams going back towards the house. So a combination of charcoal with wood. The whole house is kind of a blend of white painted brick, charcoal windows that look like steel, but they're actually painted. And in some cases they are metal on the back around the sunroom. And bringing a little bit more of a modern feel to it with the identifiable entry. So that's what that means. I don't know what
Okay, so the
you read.
pergola joists, or whatever you want to call them, going back, those are painted wood?
Those are wood. Are they painted or natural?
You don't know yet?
No.
Okay.
We were leaning towards natural, but we're open.
So then they'd probably have to be cedar or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Mhm. Also, on the windows and then the new windows and French doors, what are they? Are they steel or are they?
Because of cost, they'll be aluminum clad and charcoal. Just, they'll look exactly like the existing windows, but they'll be lower maintenance and aluminum clad.
I just wondered, because usually the steel ones have very thin members, and it's hard to match that with a wood-clad window.
It is hard to match it. We've been able to do 5/8 inch, but the windows in this house are actually wood, so we're able to match the mullions.
All right. And then, well, on the elevation, the north elevation, there are some, I don't know what that's representing up on the roof there.
The standing seam.
What am I looking at there?
Right here, the standing seam roof. So the.
Oh, it's to the left of that on the elevation, the other elevation. And these are all the
Right here?
perspectives, but
It's not this one?
no, it's just your rear elevation. It was
Oh,
in the packet.
that's the north elevation. You mean the east elevation.
Well, it says north side.
Let me see. So this is.
It looks like a skylight, or
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to see.
or a standing seam.
This one? That skylight up there?
No, the one that's, well, it's in your packet.
Maybe it's in the packet and not, let me look at the packet.
North elevation.
Commissioner Alfie, are you looking at the north elevation of the courtyard?
Side.
Rear elevation.
Yeah, there it is
north
right there.
side.
You've got it. Rear
That's it.
elevation
That's
north
it.
side.
What
You
is
have
that,
it.
what
You
is
have
that
it.
piece up on the roof there? Just to the left?
That's the front gable that we're adding.
Oh, you're representing
Just-
the new roof.
You just see a glimmer of it there.
I see, okay.
There's,
Then, the other thing is that the picture you showed today of the gable end of the family room there is different. It has square top windows on it, and this one has trapezoidal.
There.
Which way are we going?
Yep.
Well, our client wants the trapezoidal.
Okay, so that's
That's what
according
we
to
have
what's
here.
in the packet here.
Yep.
Okay, all right. And is there some reason why that fireplace is projecting, right, and out?
That's right.
But the rake board on the roof gets in front of it? There's, that overhang is that deep that it goes past the
pretty significant.
face of the fireplace?
It's a humongous overhang.
It just kind of looks odd. Maybe it would be good if it just stopped against the,
It could die into the sides.
Question.
Yeah.
Good observation.
the only other thing I had a comment on is, I guess I'm not real fond of the little shed roof over the office entrance.
Would you do a different kind of roof?
Yeah, I mean, everything else is a pitched roof. I can't see why you can't just do a little hip over there.
it'll probably climb on top of the existing roof pretty far. So I think that's why the shed kind of looks like a soft extension of the hip. It is a pretty shallow pitched roof.
We were trying to be as simplistic as possible and subtle. You make a good point. The hip, though, would start to create a pretty big dormer effect.
Carl, could you speak into the microphone? Thanks.
The eave line is so low on that side, it's about 6'8". So by the time that you can put any type of coverage for the access, which is the French door from the office, anything more like a hip roof is going to climb so high. Now, there is a shallow roof even on the front elevation between the existing garage or the new garage and the, going across where the old garage was, which is a very shallow roof that's actually just a membrane roof. But so there is shallow roofs or shallow membraned roofs, on this house. In this case, we're doing a little standing seam, but to extend even the hip and keep the asphalt or the existing hip where it is and extending it, it would get down to like 6 feet in no time. So, one of the challenges was really getting an overhang or a coverage over that access without, too much of a break from that existing roof.
Okay. That's all I got for now.
All right, great. Commissioner Sperry?
Hi.
Hi.
I was hoping you would bring an example of aspen stone or the Eden
The
stone
Eden
that
stone?
you referred to. Yes, I'm not sure from the drawings.
Forgot it at the office. And I said, should I run back and get it? And we thought, oh, good Lord, we're going last. They'll never want to see it. But just a really, do we have a picture? I might have a photo I could show you. And just a clean creams and a little bit of depth, a little bit of charcoal, all the colors that are in the house, creams and charcoal and a warm white, creamy color with some charcoals. And go ahead.
So my question then is, I don't recall, and again, I could be wrong, but I believe that Boyd Hill did not integrate that kind of aspen prairie type style into his architecture, either pre or post World War II. So correct me if I'm wrong, but you're adding an entirely different design element to this. Can you share with the commission what the thinking is there and where you wanted to go with that?
It's true. You're right. And we think, first of all, we believe it's appropriate for a modern home. And when Boyd Hill designed this house, he was relatively new to this mid-century modern style. And it is far from perfect and has many elements I think he would do differently now. Not that he would add the stone, but the verticality, for example, of the whole back. Do you have a photograph of the back of the house? The verticality of all the windows, floor-to-ceiling windows, it just lends to that aspen feel. The back of the house facing the ravine is so stunning and so open and so potentially chic, right? That by adding a little bit of these gables, these two gables and the steel, we believe we're bringing the house into a form where it shines, whereas now it is, it's tired and it's a little bit complicated,
So would it be possible to create a space where perhaps, and again, we haven't seen an example of the Eden stone, but my sense is from the artist's depictions, from the drawings, that it's rather heavy and big and bulky. And so it seems to almost conflict with the existing linear parameters of the structure. Would it be possible to perhaps consider another type of stone or perhaps a cut that isn't quite so bold and
it's unfortunate.
Colorado-like?
I know, it's unfortunate I didn't bring the stone because it's really quite lovely. And of course, we want a beautiful stone, and this stone really isn't heavy and bulky as you're describing. And for example, other stones that we looked at, because we certainly looked at a lot of stones, we looked at stones on buildings, we looked at stones in 1950s, mid-century modern houses. Some of them have a tendency to have the kind of thinner Lannon stone, which starts to get, when you start to get too extreme with that horizontal, it looks dated. It looks like you're in a, Milwaukee basement from the 1950s with ply carpeting. And so we're trying to bring it back to a local stone, right out of Wisconsin, where the Eden stone, it's a material that is used in the area, which would certainly have been done back when Boyd Hill was here. And I agree with you. I wish I had the stone. It is not bulky. And it's warm, and the house is very white and very charcoal, and it adds one element of softness, ironically, which I think you'd like to see.
We would. I think that would be a good idea, along with a rendition of the fountain. And I think that the fact that you've removed the dormers is certainly a positive for this structure. But just to help, based on the drawings, to give us a little bit more of an understanding of the appearance of the new addition to the facade would be appreciated.
Okay. Thank you. More questions?
Well, I would subscribe to what Commissioner Sperry has said. And I guess, could you tell us about your thinking of, on the one hand, removing the latter additions, the ones that interfered with the design, and without going on the property, I went and I looked and I thought that it has the original building offers a great simplicity. It has a lot of appeal, and I like the whole notion of returning to the 1958 original and keeping your renovations in the spirit of that time. And then it seemed to me that what you're calling the rustic look is at variance with that entirely. And I wondered, what was your thinking of returning to the simplicity of the past and then adding this different style?
Rustic's not a good word to call this, I don't think. Our thinking was to bring the house back to a more simpler form, as well as capitalize on some of the forms that already exist. When you look at the front of the home and you look at the back of the home, they're like two different houses. And we're trying to join the voids together and create a transparency from this front courtyard to the back and make it much more livable for the modern family and more appealing. And the style might not be exactly like we are adding that gable right there on the front of the house. And without it, we believe it's hard to identify the front entry. It's human nature. Yeah. And Carol was talking about rhythm, the rhythm of the structure. And we were going for a simpler form, but an identifiable front entry and some transparency.
Well, what if I were to say that one, that is I, could look at that and see it as not simplifying, but complicating. And I'm not so much talking about the pergola, it is the addition of the stone bases on the columns. And I'm more concerned, I think, about the front than the back. I could see reasons for that the chimney being in Eden, this Eden stone, which I would love to see too. But I find the additions that you've made in the front to seem to me at variance with the style of the overall style of the Boyd Hill design.
I will say we've had discussions per staff. They brought up the same idea with the stone on the bottom of the columns, and we've taken our client out and looked at some houses and taken some pictures and looked at other columns. And we're open to having the columns not have the stone on the bottom and simplifying some of those details. I don't know that really... right now, there's brick on the bottom of the columns, and they're very thin. The columns that already do exist are very thin, and there's a brick wall on the bottom of them. And so in keeping with that, we thought we'd pull some of the stone back forward. The stone has a little more dimensionality and a little more softness than the harsh white brick, and we just thought it added an element of earthiness. So when you say, how is this Boyd Hill intentional? And when we read his intentions, and we did a lot of research and looked at a lot of his projects, his intention was to bring the outdoors in and to bring naturalness and stone and brick and light into our lives. And we don't think we're going that far out from what he would have done. Perhaps had he designed homes longer in the last 7 years of his life when he'd have been... I can tell you don't agree, but that's what we were thinking, and I appreciate it.
Anything else? Commissioner Wheeler?
You know what? I find the stone kind of jarring, and I find the gables kind of jarring. This is such it's a really cool house, but it's old. I mean, it's an older aesthetic. But if I were doing it, I would, and I'm not going to redesign it for you, I would capitalize on the existing very simple vocabulary that's already there. I just find the addition of the stone kind of jarring, the gables kind of intrusive. I can't get warmed up about this. I don't know. I don't think the design work is done yet. That's what I see.
We're in the question phase, but it sounds like we're going to be switching over to the discussion phase fairly quickly here. I have just a couple of questions. One, could you speak a little bit more about the entryway? I mean, I certainly understand visually that you have the pitched entryway, but I'm not really clear. Is it open air and it's an open air pitch, or is there glass up there? I just can't tell from the.
It's open.
It's completely open, so it's more chalet, open
That's
chalet
right.
style or whatever. And maybe I'll ask what I think my colleagues are asking in a little bit different fashion. If a request were made to make the design simpler has been one term, or a little bit cleaner, because I think what you're hearing consistently is it's not our role really to debate what the ambition was of the original architect. I mean, the architect did design it and made it that way, whether he decided to evolve into prairie style or anything else over time. But this particular structure has very clean, simple lines. And it is void of what the texture you might see on other properties that have all sorts of stonework around them and you name it. So soft texture as it relates to the painted brick. The windows, you're right, kind of a coloration scheme that falls away, and they clearly did that intentionally. But it's very linear. I mean, if you were coming up with another terminology for it, it's a very modular home. And so when you start putting angles on something that's modular, I think that's the reaction, which is it does change it. What I'm hearing is it's kind of the hope of the petitioner and the current homeowners to make that adjustment, to add those, those design elements, to give it a little different sense of character. So I guess, however you might want to address it here, but maybe the question would be, would you be comfortable with something that came across a little cleaner without me pretending to be an architect to say how you might do that? Or is it, just so we understand it, that you're feeling very firm about, I like the pitch and I like, trying to better understand
Sure. Good evening. Al Zoller's my name. And,
Yes, hi, welcome.
I appreciate your input, and particularly from the first meeting, which I was unable to attend. And we took your suggestions, your concerns about the roof lines overlapping, and we really changed the whole front facade, moving this center entry over. And we like the Boyd Hill original ideas of bringing the outside in.
Mhm.
We've added the windows and the light in
Yep.
order to emphasize that aspect, and opening up on the inside as well. At the same time, I wanted to update the design. No, we're not trying to stick to the Boyd Hill design. It's not my intention.
Right.
I think the house has already gone way off of that with the dormer additions and
Mhm.
the garage modifications. I like the idea of simplicity and keeping clean lines. We're open to considering the stone, but I don't know that in these drawings, that they don't come off as being more harsh than they will be in actuality.
Okay.
I'd certainly like to show you the stone, because it doesn't have that kind of hard, big, clunky feel to it. It's narrower and light in color, and it matches the scheme, the color scheme of the home.
Okay. Great, appreciate that, thank you. Well, if no more questions, I think we should comfortably switch over to kind of the discussion phase, unless staff has any other input that you want to provide for us to.
Just 3 points or 3 questions. One, something that the commission might talk about is I've heard that the owner desires a center entry. It seems like a center entry can be achieved. Perhaps, as I think Commissioner Wells said, the design isn't quite fully developed yet. Second, I think it would be helpful to get some clarification on the materials of the front entry. I think I heard that the intention is for some of what is identified on the elevation as heavy timbers. It says heavy timbers and timber columns with steel core. But I think I've heard something different. And then my third and final point is the design guidelines do speak to really adhering pretty close to 2 materials. And in this case, we now have the brick as the primary material. We have heavy timber or maybe steel, and we have the stone. So we're moving away from the guidelines, which really speak to really sticking pretty closely to 2 materials. So just 3 thoughts to offer.
Great, all right. So with that, further discussions. Commissioner Gale?
And I don't know that you requested public testimony yet.
No,
Or maybe I missed
apologize.
it.
That's right. Since I kind of noticed, yeah, forgive me. So you're sitting back there, I wasn't sure. Apologies.
Hello. My name is Tom Gleason with the Lake Forest Historic Preservation Organization. The foundation supports the city staff's review and comments guiding the commission's discussion here tonight. The petitioner's house, the Boyd Hill of 1956, is a contributing structure in the East Lake Forest Historic District, and as such may offer the possibility of property tax freeze if the essential character is not significantly altered. The petitioner may want to discuss and consult Landmarks Illinois and the State Preservation Agency before making some of these exterior changes. That said, the front and rear new gable roof pitches do not match those of the rest of the house, disrupting the classic harmony now in place on the site. The fenestration, too, will make the highly visible in distance in the nighttime when the lights are on. The horizontal tucked-in hill design and its hipped gable roofs reflected the sophisticated Lake Forest balance between the modernist vocabulary and the classic heritage nearby, being differential to classic neighborhood properties. This approach, too, was a mid-century modern type and typical of some of the Keck and Keck houses in the 1950s, more especially at 1711 Devonshire, and even Frank Lloyd Wright's, some of his 50s houses, more locally here at 190 North Mayflower. So, thank you.
Appreciate it, thank you. Forgive me for not calling you up. All right, now, so for our discussion, and I'll recap what I believe Kathy and Kate articulated in the beginning. There are 2 paths here. One is that we believe that there is sufficient information here with a number of questions outstanding, and saying that we acknowledge what they are, we are clear about them, we would request that there would be further consideration and work on those, and then we would say with that conditioned approval, so to speak, it could then go to city staff. That would be one, with all the conditions that were laid out. The other is that there would be a general sense that we're not quite far enough along in the petition, and there are outstanding questions as it relates to materials, how they might look in particular, actually seeing the materials and so forth. In that, if we were to motion for a continuation, it doesn't necessarily mean that the design has to change dramatically. It might just mean that we need to better understand it. And once doing so, it might also mean that we would ask that there might be some minor modifications, because until we have that clarity, it's hard to say what direction we'd go. But that, before we kind of go into discussions about things, would be, those seem to be the two paths that we have put out there, unless Kathy, there's further refinement to that. So that's what's up for debate. So we want to start with you, Commissioner Sperry, and
Sure.
see where we go.
Sure. So my suggestion would be that, to your point, Chairman, we follow up with a better understanding of the materials so we can get a feel for the type of stone. I would also suggest, in alignment with staff's recommendation, that perhaps we consider a design that is a little bit more simple, meaning we have a lot of different elements that have been introduced here between the steel beams, the pergola, the Eden stone, and some pretty, well, to be frank, the pitch of the gable does not mirror the existing hipped roof. So there's a lot going on. And I think what I'm hearing among my colleagues, and I'm certainly feeling, is there a way to simplify this? Is there a way to perhaps mirror some of those different elements so that it doesn't appear quite so complicated as I think you're hearing us mirror right now? So if that is possible, I would welcome that opportunity so we could see and learn a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Allen.
Well, there were, staff had quite a few comments in their review of this, and I'm not sure we got all of them cleared up in our hearing tonight, and so I think, and I don't want to run through all of them, but they are numerous in here, and it would seem to me, under the circumstances, that we need to take a little more time to clarify some of these things and let this come back again.
All right, appreciate it. Commissioner Wheeler.
I think, that's an excellent point about the roof pitch. Once again, I find it just a little, if this house weren't such a strong example of the simplicity of, and the hip roof, and the single material and the Hope's windows, that's three things. I think that the additions shown here are just a little beyond the scope here. I think they detract from the character of this house. I don't think they enhance the character of the house. I know that I am a fan of buildings evolving, but I think they have to evolve sensitively. And so I would suggest that you review this a little further. The center, moving the entry to the center, I think that's a great idea. Maybe the colonnade, the pergola, maybe you use the brick. Maybe there's a way to fashion the posts out of the brick. I think I'm not ready to approve it.
Appreciate it. Commissioner Gill.
Well, I think that I follow along with that thinking for several reasons. One is that staff has indeed raised a number of questions of the applicable standards. At least half, and I think actually by count maybe one more than more than half, they raise some questions. They say that that's not fully met. And it might be worth re-examining that, including coming to standard 17, which is the integrity of historic property. And along with Wells, I think that it is true that homes have to be subject to change for new owners and new families and new conditions. On the other hand, there is, I really quite like the house that I saw, not the dormers, I grant you that. And I wonder if it might be worth examining if there are other ways more in keeping with the historic structure that you have, and what a wonderful historic structure to have, what a nice one, that it would be possible, at the very least on the facade. I realize it's not directly seen from the street, it's not a direct streetscape. Nonetheless, at least the front elevation might be more in keeping with the original. Opening up the back to the, what you say is sunny light and openness, I can see the advantage of that, but there might be some virtue in keeping a continuity of style, particularly in the front, in the front entryway. So I would like to follow along with saying, could you reconsider some of these various points raised by staff, and I think by a number of us.
Okay, thank you.
Question for Kathy.
Yes, please.
Kathy, has the petitioner do they have a benefit of having seen these, your highlighted comments that we receive? Have they been able to?
Yes, they did, in the staff report?
Yes.
Yes, they did get a copy of that.
Okay, because there are quite a few things that haven't been addressed in that list, so I would encourage to work from that to look at things that we'd like to hear more definitively about.
Great, thank you. All right, well, I will, let me try and summarize, I think, what I'm hearing here. As I think through the two paths that were put out there, and I mentioned in the opening remarks that we try and balance, our responsibilities with trying to be expeditious. But I'm not convinced from the comments I'm hearing here that if we just pass these comments on to staff and ask them to hold firmly to those, that you would be moving through any more quickly. Because I don't know if we've been able to articulate as clearly as we might want to what would be the things that we would like you to look at, so you can go back and do things that would hopefully come back and everybody would be fine with it. So given that, I'm hearing more that the leaning is towards continuation. I never want to usurp the voting process, but what I want to make sure is that we are providing some clear feedback to you, so you don't feel like you just walk out of the room and say, I'm not quite sure what we're supposed to do. And that's in consultation, obviously, with staff. So I'll put out some things, and then I'm going to turn to Kathy and Kate and ask whether or not they think that summary of those comments provides direction enough so that when you consult with them, you feel as though when you come back, you're going to say, I think we're pretty close. One is, as Commissioner Wheeler mentioned, and I think others may not have said it specifically, but they feel that way, that certainly moving the entryway over, I don't think anybody has any issue with that whatsoever. You have a unanimous agreement that getting rid of what was put in before in the roof line, they were approved at a time that had they come today, they would not have been approved. So of course we're happy to see that those are going. They don't match any element of the home whatsoever. The fact that you want to add pitching elements in different places, I don't think you're hearing necessarily that we'd say no, but without really saying specifically, is that rusty metal with wood? How much is it open? Is there some willingness to soften that pitch a little bit if you feel strongly about it? But the feeling is I want a defined entryway. Those are things we can consider, but I think the request is, can we look at some variations on that a little bit that might soften that a little bit, because I think people are responding to the contrast between, putting a very tight pitch on something that heretofore has been very modular in in the way it's been there. And also a question I'll put out, because I didn't mention this in the question area. In the rear, they were talking about the hipping of that back roof. I noticed, though, you have actually a step down, so that doesn't exist now, because you're putting doors there. So you're actually putting some kind of a cement landing there. Well, do you have to have the cement landing if you want to just immediately go to the ground? Because that would allow you to drop the door down, and you wouldn't have to have as much of a lift on the hip. Is that an option, or you really like the idea of being elevated and not stepping closer to the ground? Oh, it's an existing slab. That's why I couldn't tell. Okay, anyway. So.
It might be drawn a little bit like it is 2 steps in, but it's really a 1 step out.
Okay, great, I appreciate that. And so, turn to my fellow commissioners, can you think of anything else that we need to? We had talked a lot about the stone, and certainly we'd want to see that. So we could say that we'd like it to potentially be smoother, or if it's going to be painted, is going to be white paint to match the home, or whatever it may be, because it is another textural element, so I think we want to understand that better. Is there anything else we can think of that we would like to?
Well, the second part of that included one of the things that concerns me, rather than complication of the style, an effort towards simplification of, concentrate on 1 or 2 of the changes rather than multiple changes.
You know, for example, perhaps a rendition with a brick as opposed to an Eden stone. Obviously, if you're wedded to the Eden stone, we'll take a look at that and see what we can do. But there's a number of elements here, and we're just trying to see if we can maybe reduce that.
Can I ask a question or make
Certainly.
a comment? Just listening to you, when you're good at boiling everything down to the simplest, towards the goal of expediting this, because my client really wants to get into his
I understand
home.
that.
He's in Highwood now. And Susan Benjamin, who was here earlier, actually came. We thought about having her do a historical analysis, but she, as a quote, said, you know, she's never seen a house with fewer, like, no distinguishing features. And towards that goal, yes, our client wants to change the house from in his opinion, unattractive home with a 3-car garage and these goofy dormers. So it sounds like you're in agreement that we're okay with a front-centered symmetrical entry. It sounds like, and I know Kathy was good with this, the back facing the ravine, having the fireplace, it felt fitting. It sounds like you're probably okay getting a door out of the office to the ravine. So I guess I'd say, in the name of expediting this, it sounds like we're in agreement on a lot of these things. And the stone, I'm going to ask that we go to committee based on these, in essence, 3 distinguishing things, and the stone be decided by committee. I don't know if you guys do that, but I just thought I'd ask
No,
to
I appreciate
expedite
that.
this.
I mean, those are certainly things that can be thought of as the motion goes out. Because that's the question, whether or not we hand it off to staff, and staff understands those things specifically, and you'll work with them directly to work through that, or some things need to come back. So that I put out to all of us here. Do we feel as though we need to see those things in another session in the future to move this along, or are we articulating enough of our concerns? And certainly know that Kathy and Kate understand what those are, and so in deliberation with them, they can work through those.
So
And
my
that's
que-
the question.
So Chairman, my question too is, does sending it to staff expedite this process for the petitioner, or not really?
Well,
It's still,
I'll let Kathy speak to.
You've identified a number of issues. I think there's some lack of clarity on the plans. There's some inconsistency with what we heard. My sense, with given the number of concerns, it really would expedite it to bring it back to you. Given the clear direction you've provided, we can certainly meet with the petitioner in the meantime and try and get clarity so that next time we bring it back, we have all your issues addressed.
I think that's the right way to do it.
I appreciate all the deliberation over this, and then certainly our intent is the same, our objectives are the same as yours. And I can think of ways to simplify, and perhaps, I know there is at least one less material than was noted in this report. There is no stucco on the house.
Okay.
But I'm looking forward to moving back to Lake Forest after being exiled in Fort Sheridan for 5 years. And my lease is up in October. And so we've been through one delay from the first meeting to this one. Now we're talking about another. That's a 3-month impact that financially is pretty huge.
Just to clarify, this has not been before the commission before?
Right.
So this is the first time it's before you?
Were we here for the meeting prior to this?
No, they forwarded us to this meeting.
Okay, I'm sorry. So it was considered for that meeting last month and pushed off this month. It's still delayed to me.
I understand. All right, well, I think we've heard everything that we're going to hear. I think we just have to put it up for a motion, make a decision. So, anybody want to take a stab at a motion? It's your night. Mr.
You know,
Mueller.
I'm going to move that we continue the consideration of this petition and request that staff resolve several issues based on the questions related to each of several of the standards, and resolve the building scale workbook, and the clarification on materials, and present us with material samples, and review the plans prior to the next meeting for the petition for 540 Pine Lane.
Okay. All right.
I think that's it. Yes.
All right. So there's a motion. Do I hear a second?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? No, obviously. All right, so with that, obviously work with city staff, hope, and certainly if they have any issues that aren't known, they'll reach out to us and we'll do our best to provide very quick feedback, so the next time we come through, hopefully that'll be it. So thank you very much, appreciate it. And with that, I don't think anybody else is left, but I will open it up. Are there any other items to be discussed this evening, outside of what's been on the list? All right, hearing none and seeing none, then motion to adjourn.
So move that we adjourn.
All right, thank you very much, adjourned.
Thank you.